Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 106. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Lionel.
Hello, how's everyone doing today? How you doing today, Mike?
I'm good, brother. Yourself?
I am well.
All right. We'll get it cracking on the first article. If you want to follow along, the docket is in the description beneath the video. All right. This first article is from QZ.com. Ethereum's Vitalik Buterin says IBM's corporate blockchain is missing the point. This is interesting. Let me read the first couple of paragraphs. DevCon, the annual Ethereum Developers Conference, was fairly subdued this year. Compared to its previous installment in the resort town of Cancun, the gathering, the, the gathering held in Prague from October 30th to November 2nd, 2018, reflected tempered exuberance as cryptocurrencies prices have returned to Earth this year. Gone with the insufferable ICO promoters and hangers on. Sadly, this year nobody was offering 400,000 salaries to amateur blockchain developers. As of November 23rd, Ether, the token used to transact on the Ethereum network, reached a 2018 low of $120, down from a down from a high of $1,400 in early January. At DEFCON 4, scalability or how to improve the speed of robustness on Ethereum project dominated the conversation. Speakers also addressed topics like how can Ethereum onboard its next million users, and how can designers and developers improve users interface. I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, I don't want to go through too much of the article. I really hate these advertisements. On the sidelines of the DEF CON 4, Ethereum's co-founder Vitalik spoke with Quartz. He discussed what's on his what's on his reading list, why he's distressed about the IBM blockchain, and what blockchains might be good for. That is beyond cryptocurrency. And it goes on. It's basically an interview. I do want to get to where he did mention IBM. What do you think of IBM blockchain for food? The potential value of tracking food on a blockchain is that you get QR codes stamped on the food at every step along the way, and you as a consumer can scan the code and get confirmation about here is where this stuff came from. Like I can check it, like I can check if it complies with my own moral values or standards for quality and so forth. There's definitely something there, but whether or not any of the actors there are doing it remotely correctly, I'm much less sure. Well, I don't want to go through too much of it. If you want to read it, you can actually go through the docket below because it's a pretty long-winded interview. What do you think about this, Lionel?
It's a few good points that was pointed out. In the beginning, the first few questions, Quartz asked him. Well, not they didn't ask him, but the reason for the DevCon for meetup was to how to have Ethereum scale up, and the magic numbers for a lot of these cryptocurrencies are the 70,000 transactions to 100,000 transactions per second, because that's what Visa, Mastercard, Discover Card, American Express. That's what these excuse me, these modern um, um, transaction dealers do. So they need to scale up to at least that in order to get real adoption going.
Hmm.
But after that, and man, Ethereum was 1400s early, high of 1400 earlier this year. It got
Hmm.
down to $88 a couple of days ago. Um, Even our technical analysts and other technical analysts say Bitcoin will go down further. So by association, Ethereum may go down more. So that's surprising, but still, that's money to be made if depending on how you look at it. Now, other than that, they did ask him about him outside of DevCon 4. One question they asked him, well, what books are you reading? And he said on the flight there, he read a book about democracy in Mongolia. It's almost like, okay, who reads that? But at the same time, um, people who are into learning and thinking outside the box and want to improve their intellect, they read this type of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, then he said he wants Japanese, Spanish, things like that. So here on the Brain Trust, we really um, want people to expand their intellect also. So this is kind of what people do: read books that's off the beaten path, if you will.
Mhm.
Now, also he talked about the IBM and what you just mentioned about the food and the blockchain. Now he did mention that blockchain isn't a benevolent technology. It's not even a bad technology, evil technology. It's neutral. It's the people who use it that makes it good or bad. Now, what he said that what he was getting at was tracking food on the blockchain is good. It's just that the blockchain is only as good as the information that is put on the blockchain, meaning every step of the way that food travels from farm to your table,
Mhm.
the people that's handling that the the route that food goes to and the people who sees that food, they have to update the blockchain. But which is kind of okay, people can get lazy, they can just say, whatever. The next person to update it, things happen. But he did also say to circumvent that, the blockchain does make it hard to contradict yourself.
Mhm.
And then he said, well, there are some people that say, well, I only eat farm raised, free range chicken that's raised in Montana, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So people in that area that raise farm raised free range chicken, they can put a QR code not on the food, but on the packaging of the food. And you can scan the QR code. So I'm guessing people will update the blockchain, thus for updating that QR code. So you can take your phone now, scan and say, well, yeah, this from Montana. Yeah, it's free range. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. So I eat this type of food. So people who's health minded will have an easier way to stay healthy. They don't have to do no guessing because of the blockchain. And then with the IBM, he said they're missing the point, but I didn't get why. He I don't think either I missed it. I don't think he mentioned why they're missing the point.
I think what he's trying to say is that they're trying to commercialize it, and it
Okay.
shouldn't be commercialized. Maybe he's referring to democratization of the blockchain itself. In that regard, I do would agree with him, and maybe that's why he was reading that book about democracy
Mongolia, yeah.
in Golia. So.
Now what he did, excuse me, and what's on the screen now said, what are you studying in the crypto sphere right now?
Mhm.
Excuse me. He said, I'm looking at RSA accumulators. So, you know what I did? I wrote down, I need to look up RSA accumulators because it may come up in the future. And then in the audit, like the now it said that I don't know if you've seen Plasma Prime at all, but there's this set of upgrades to Plasma Crack Cash. And so that what's that called? It's a paragraph that's italicized that shows a link that has a hyperlink to Plasma that whoever's listening to this, if you
It's
look at
right
the
here.
article, right, it's on the screen that it's highlighted in blue. And then if you want to know what plasma is, it takes you to a Medium, I think a Medium article
Mhm.
that they tell you what plasma is.
Mhm.
But all in all, it was a good article. It wasn't heavily technical. It was a pretty much a question asked, question answer type of deal.
Hmm. Yeah, I think his beef with IBM is that IBM's the commercial 800-pound gorilla, and this is really the time for startups to really start adopting and taking advantage of the blockchain and the digital infrastructure that goes along with it. And having it's like having it's like having Donald Trump at a fundraiser when he already has the money, right? Like, why do you need to be here? Like, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like a skunk. They see IBM as a skunk.
I see what you're saying. Now that you say that, I see what you're saying. But at the same time, they don't hold no, they don't hold a copyright to blockchain. Blockchain is this new technology, so it's free for everybody to use. But it just came up in that cycle of cypherpunk libertarian where, oh, um, the little guy, but still, it's a technology. Anybody is free to use it. So you have to think about that.
Mhm.
And you're yes, that's his beef with it, and he's probably thinking that way, like, hey, this is little guy technology.
Mhm. Well, people want a fair shot at the market,
Mm,
and they don't want to be squeezed out by 800-pound gorillas, whales, and things of that nature.
true, true.
Mm. Wait, what just happened to this page? All right, we'll move on to the next article. All right, this one is from lifehacker.com. What you need to know about HTC's Exodus One, the blockchain smartphone. All right, let's. I don't want to read the whole entire thing, but I want to follow one of the key points that was mentioned. Yeah, I think I'll go over next couple of paragraphs. All right, so for those of you listening, and you've never heard of the HTC Exodus One, let me just read the intro for you. The HTC Exodus One is a blockchain-powered smartphone that also serves as a digital cryptocurrency wallet and a secure data vault. It was conceived of and designed by Phil Chen, HTC's decentralized chief officer. Chen was also on the development team that created the HTC Vive VR headset. So interesting that they use Android 8.1 when 9.0 is out. My phone is using 9.0. So HTC does. Okay, so how does HTC Exodus One protect my cryptocurrency? To keep the cryptocurrency safe, the HTC implemented the Trust Zone Secure Enclave on the Exodus One, something you won't find on your average Android phone. Trust Trust Zone is basically hardware-based mini OS that acts like a digital bank vault, helping you manage your crypto assets and processes and running in parallel with the phone's Android 8.1 OS. Any data protected by Trust Zone is cordoned off from and unreadable to everything else on the phone, including the Android OS and everything running on it. This is interesting. They basically petitioned the an area of the phone in virtual space.
Now I have a question for you. Outside of it being a blockchain phone, they mentioned the specs of it, and I know you just hit on one spec, the version of Android,
Mhm,
but they hit on more hardware specs such as camera
mhm.
and RAM. What do you think about the specs?
It's the thing about Android is that it moves really fast. So a Snapdragon 845, that's cool. I think most phones right now actually use that. IPS68. That's pretty normal. Every Android flagship pretty much has IP68. Um, 6 gigs of RAM. That's normal for a flagship phone. Um, I know the OnePlus 6T, McLaren version coming out has 10 gigs of RAM. So
Mm. That's
battery is
stored. You did you? I think you just you have the storage of memory. 6 grams. 6 I'm about to say grams. Six gigabytes of RAM. That sounds good.
6 gigabytes is actually normal.
On in the phone.
Yeah, it's actually normal.
Wow.
So 128 gigabytes of storage is
Yeah, low. Ain't that
it's
low?
not well, it's not low. That's actually becoming more normalized now. So more your flagship phones. So when we talk about these type of phones, we're talking about flagship. We're not talking about like low end. You got it from Cricket or something like that. This is where this is like a heavyweight phone. Supposed to be a heavyweight phone. My phone has 256 gigabytes of memory in it by default. So, and I think I paid probably around the same price for, or I paid less money for my phone than my OnePlus 6.
Mm.
Um, um, than what this HTC goes for. So, um,
Now, the storage is non-expandable. Is that like a deal breaker to some people?
not necessarily. Most people won't use up that storage unless they're going to record video. That's where it becomes a problem.
Okay. Okay. Now, the phone, it says it's $1,000. Um, we've seen, we talked about in the past how phones are, man, there's other phones, just like the phones you mentioned, they're less than $1,000. And on top of that, this is uh, not, I don't want to say a starter phone, but it's a experimental phone, if you will, and it costs $1,000. And it's on top of that, it's only for, well, people that will find it interesting are the people that are in crypto, and play and some. So you add those things on top of it. I don't think it'll sell a lot.
So I think what they're trying to do is set themselves apart from the rest of the competition, and what they're trying to sell is the fact that it's a digital wallet as opposed
Mhm.
to anything else.
Okay.
Because no other phone on the market can really boast about being a blockchain phone, right? So it's just one of those things. I think what's going to happen with Android is that they're going to eventually adopt a lot of these features, anyways, in the next iterations of like 10.0.
Hmm. Like
I think,
blockchain.
yeah, I think they'll eventually adopt those features,
Okay.
but it has to be tied in with the provider too. So if T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, I think they'll have to get on board. So the next 5G phones will have some form of blockchain technology involved in it.
Okay. Now the cryptocurrency part, then come back to the blockchain part. Now, one thing that the article mentioned about keeping your cryptocurrency safe, say like you lose your phone,
Hmm.
they have the same recovery process such as Facebook. You shard your password to what I think said 3 or 5 different people. And for people that are listening, sharding is just basically you splitting up your password to these people hold a part of the password, and together you get those parts, and together you get your whole password. But it also said that those people have to download an app. I don't know how trust trustworthy that is. It depends on your circle. You know, that sounds iffy to me.
Because people hold on to their phones for quite a long time. You see like a lot of iPhone users, their screen is cracked, the battery doesn't hold a charge. They hold on to it for a long time, so they're banking on the probability that your friends are going to hold on to their phone, so therefore it's going to be a lot more reliable. And if they really are your friends, um, they're your trusted zone. But let me just read this paragraph real quick, and then we'll just move on. To keep your cryptocurrency safe, HTC implemented the Trust Zone Secure Enclave on the Exodus One, something you won't find on the average Android phone. Trust Zone is basically hardware-based mini OS that acts as a digital bank vault. helping you manage your crypto assets and process running in parallel with the phone's Android 8.1 OS. Any data protected by Trust Zone is cordoned off and unreadable. Everything else on the phone, including Android OS running on it. Exodus One users manage their cryptocurrencies via the Zion crypto wallet, which securely stores Bitcoin and Ethereum across a decentralized network. The wallet can even be used to make payments in apps with with Zion integration. HTC has released the Zion Software Developers Kit (SDK) and key management APIs for developers who wish to integrate support for Zion payments into the apps. This security method differs from what is known as cold storage, the offline cryptocurrency storage method where keys are stored directly on a device, much like Siren Labs' upcoming Finery phone, Finery blockchain phone. While cold storage is ultimately safer from hackers, it's not without risk, since losing or damaging your phone would mean losing access to your crypto keys for good. This is actually a strong point. Should you lose your Exodus phone, on the other hand, you'll be able to regain access to your Zion wallet using social key recovery or code sharding. Yeah, it's just what you mentioned earlier. I'm just reading it for the people who did not read it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, this is interesting. I just don't. I'm not a big fan of HTC phones because they tend to lose their support after a while.
I'm still trying to imagine how they're going to utilize the blockchain. Is it strictly for cryptocurrencies, or will it be both for cryptocurrencies and the data provider? You see what I'm saying?
Say that one more time.
Like, it's a blockchain phone, so is it a blockchain phone because it holds cryptocurrencies, or is it a blockchain phone because not only does it hold cryptocurrencies, but it's using blockchain for the cellular data, cellular capabilities? It's going to utilize blockchain capability. You understand how I'm trying to say it?
Those mechanisms are separate from each other.
So it's a blockchain phone because it holds cryptocurrencies.
It's a blockchain phone because it holds a digital wallet and is attached to is decentralized from can operate independently of the network that it's on. If that makes any sense. So just using Wi-Fi actually gives it that capability.
Yeah. Oh, okay, 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 okay. Okay. Let's because I'm understanding, but maybe people that's listening may not understand it. Um, the blockchain technology helps it work outside of the um, AT&T, Sprint, blah blah blah, T-Mobile, as long as it's connected to Wi-Fi, a Wi-Fi connection.
Correct. So public Wi-Fi hotspots and things like that. Starbucks. Krispy Kreme or whatever it is. McDonald's. It's independent. So what you were trying to say was that the blockchain would make would enhance the LTE connection, the 4G,
Right.
5G connection. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't have anything to do with that.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Because I was trying to see, are they calling it a blockchain phone because um the cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, you connect into the cryptocurrency blockchain, or is the blockchain technology itself enhancing the cellular capabilities? That's why I was trying to. So
Yeah.
yeah, the blockchain just has something to do with the cryptocurrency. You connect to the cryptocurrency blockchain. That's why it's called a blockchain. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next article. So much time left. Hmm. This one is from blog.arc.io. This one ended up in my feed for whatever reason. Um, Making cross-chain smart contracts on Arc via Hyperledger Fabric. This is really, really geek talk right here.
Oh,
The services and consulting group called Arc Lab has successfully completed a cross-platform integration of Arc blockchain with Hyperledger Fabric technology. Hosted by the Linux Foundation, Hyperledger Fabric is a blockchain framework implementation intended as a foundation for developing blockchain applications, products, and solutions. Arc boasts a whole host of new and exciting technologies, with one of the most prominent ones being Smart Bridge functionality. The integration of Smart Bridge functionality allows Arc to bypass one of the most common issues surrounding different blockchains, which is the isolation between each one. The open source standards-based cross-platform integration between the two technologies will contribute to accelerating mass adoption of blockchain technologies for businesses and beyond. The integration marks a significant achievement for the Arc ecosystem, bridging support for smart contracts directly from the Arc blockchain using Smart Bridge technology. The ability to seamlessly create, launch, and manage smart contracts between the two different blockchain technologies opens up a realm of possibilities further for anyone to create compelling business solutions using Arc and Hyperledger technologies. Hyperledger adds support to Arc for smart contracts written in JavaScript, Go, and Solidity. The Hyperledger integration plugin is is added to Arc Core version 2, running on relay nodes connected to the main Arc blockchain. The custom Hyperledger chain may be added to the same relay nodes or run on a cluster of independent nodes. As an option, Arc may be cloned to the new chain with its own token, which supports the Go, JavaScript, and Solidity contracts using the Hyperledger Arc Core plugin. So, I'll finish reading off the rest of these. Smart Bridge technology allows for linking of different blockchains through the method of bridging, which creates simultaneous utilization of multiple blockchain networks by simplifying the process of having to endlessly trade assets on public exchanges to gain access to rival networks. The most recent ARC technical update focuses on keeping our new version 2 API simple, clean, and allowing for easy access for new developers to quickly jump in and extend it. If you are interested in the full scope example and guide on how this can be set up and used, be sure to give this series of blog posts a read. The ARC team is very proud to see the new ARC core in its module design is being used to show the potential of plugins and what they power and what power they possess. So basically,
yeah, like where to start?
basically, what's happening here is that they've created a broker that couples all other blockchains together, and they are that broker.
Hmm.
And what this allows is multiple in, multiple out. It's basically like a traffic cop for blockchain. So it's rerouting. Um, it knows how to interchange with multiple different blockchains, regardless of what their language is written in, whether it's JavaScript or Solidity or Go. They're all compatible.
That's good.
Typically, what happens with Ethereum, and then you have something like IOTA, and then you have something like EOS or something like that. You have all these various blockchains that can't communicate with each other because they're pretty much proprietary in their spec and their scope. And when you have that, it makes it difficult to make cross payments and talk to different vendors and you know just a whole host of variety of decoupling is what this this is doing. I think this is I think this is a good platform, um, and something I'll be investing in the very near future. Because what
Yes.
happens with these smart cars, these autonomous cars, they'll have their own blockchain, and then you have something like the HTC phone we just read about the previous article has its own blockchain, and then you have cryptocurrency payments on their own blockchain, and then you have voting, um, political voting on a different blockchain. All of these blockchains floating around being constructed, but none of them can talk to each other. They're all proprietary. This is supposed to actually solve this issue.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. Everything. I second everything you said. It allows the blockchains to talk to each other. Now, from standpoint, art currently is now 30 cent, 30 to 33 cents. Its all-time high was about $10. It has what I like about ARC is it pays dividends, meaning you stake your ARC. Um, what staking is for people who heard this before but don't really understand what it is. Your rewards on that particular blockchain is biased toward to however many of that coin you hold. So let's say I have 10 ARC, Mike got 20 ARC, but somebody got 50,000 ARC. Because they have 50,000 ARC, they're the blockchain is biased toward them two blocks on the blockchain because they have much more of a investment in that blockchain and staking and saying, hey, I promise to not spend my coins. I just promise to leave it here. Now, I say it to say is ARC. I say that to say this: ARC pays a dividend depending on how much ARC you have or how many ARC you have determines how much ARC you get on a monthly basis. So ARC is about 30 cents. Like we stated before, several technical analysis are saying that Bitcoin will go down. So by association, ARC will go down a little bit more, by a few more pennies. We're not financial specialists. Mike hit all the nails on the head when he talked about the technical part, but on the investment side, ARC provides to you.
Yeah, if you want a certified financial planner, you should look up one on CFP.net.
Yep, yep, yep.
But we'll move on
ARC
to the
is a
next
good
one.
platform.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. And plus, I know you go to the next one. And plus, something had to give. All these proprietary blockchains, there there was a something to be solved. Like, hey, they have to talk to each other. So someone was going to do it.
Hmm. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Are you kidding me? All right, so this next video is from RT. Cuba is finally online with 3G connectivity for internet service. So, because the United States has a blockade on Cuba, it does not allow Cuba to have that sort of functionality of obtaining um, network infrastructure for connecting to the outside world. Some people have internet, some people don't. Um, now it has public availability of 3G. So you have hotspots all over the place. People have these smartphones, new smartphones. They've adopted the technology, but they can never connect out. So here we are.
Yeah, on a few points, and it also said how Venezuela a couple of years ago, I won't say 2011, but a couple of years ago, helped Cuba get internet by laying wire on the ocean floor, which is how a lot of different countries communicate by internet already. But I didn't know Venezuela did that. That was a pretty good thing. And then what's on the screen right now, it said that I know the U.S. government secretly created a Cuban Twitter to create civil unrest. Um, yeah, that's it's a few things. I also pointed out that how even though they have internet, some people still may not be able to afford it because of the low wages. But the first step is at least they have, you can't at least they have it.
Well, the problem is you have digital racism, where you're trying to keep one ethnicity off of modern technology because you dislike their ethnicity, and two, you dislike their politics. That's basically digital colonialism and digital racism, all encompassed in one policy. When you disrupt people's lives from having access to modern technologies or even infrastructure, that's that goes beyond a grievance of politics. This has a lot to do with book burning of what the Europeans used to do in Africa when they invaded Africa and they made the Cometians and other tribes burn transcribe their books, and then they burned the actual books, for the Europeans.
Uh, Hey, I'm in agreement. That's written history right there. Um, this guy is on the screen. He made a couple good points. What's going on in Cuba also, but this is a step in the right direction. We'll see how far or how well their internet will grow in the future, and if they even socialize the internet, or how many citizens are able to get on it compared to how many citizens are not able to, and what problems that'll bring up. But this is a step in the right direction. They said that the phones are still 3G or something.
They still have 3G connectivity. So most of
Okay.
your 4G phones have 3G connectivity because it still connects to the previous infrastructure. That's not uncommon. If you come out of a 4G zone, you'll be knocked right back down to 3G.
Okay. And they said that Huawei was providing some internet service there also, which is pretty interesting.
Right, the Chinese government, which is Huawei. Huawei is a state-sponsored technology company.
Hmm.
Have been providing infrastructure through Venezuela, um, and Cuba. So they provided all the communications towers and everything else. And the sanctions and blockade on Cuba is supposed to prevent that from the United States side. So Cisco technologies can't be inside Cuba, but that doesn't mean that Huawei from China and ZTE can't partake in the infrastructure building
Hmm.
in Cuba. So for the most part, you have outside vendors who can come in and that are non-American that can come in and actually do business. So
Okay. Okay.
it, you're going to see a whole lot come out of all of this stuff. Obviously, China, and Cuba both have communist histories and solidarity in that regard. So rest assured that Cuba is going to borrow a lot of the internet policies from China because China also controls has a communist internet inside China where you can't say certain things about the government and you can't see certain content outside the country. All right, let's move on to the next article. Lionel. Oh, okay. Lionel dropped off. Sorry about that. This next video is from Belgian scientists developed smart contract lens which can detect diseases from CGTN. This is a game changer. I want you guys to pay attention. So what's happening here is that this contact lens has a battery, wireless technology embedded in it, and a processor that is used to actually detect diseases on the fly. But it could be actually expanded on to do more than that. I know. Do you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I get kept on losing internet. Are you not sharing the screen or something wrong with it?
Oh, yeah. For some odd reason, I got knocked off.
Okay. Yeah, this is pretty interesting. I think you said everything needs to be said, but I'll just reiterate some things. It was saying that if drugs need to be dispensed through the body, the lens will do it through the eye. Um, the techno trying to figure out remember some of the other things they said in it, but it yeah, how thin it is though. I think the material that how thin it is man, it's half the he said it's half the thickness of a human hair. Golly. But that's the main thing. I remember the medicine, if things need to be medicine needs to be dispensed through the body, then the contact lenses will do it. That's pretty cool. That's that's next level. That's like futuristic stuff in my opinion.
Yeah, and when you factor in the article that we covered last week about the sensors being used for paraplegic people, to scroll up and down web pages on tablets and things like that, even typing words without actually moving their fingers. You have uh, biometric contact lenses dispensing medicine, have the ability to dispense medicine, um, to communicate out as well. There's so much happening right now in terms of this stuff, and we covered that you can get your degree in neuroscience on edx.org.
Mm, yeah.
That's where we are right now. So it's easy, we're looking at the screen and we make it seem like it's hard, but this is computer engineering and neuroscience put together.
Because sometimes you just need to get that degree to get in the field. When you're in the field, you learn so much more. I mean, the degree is just the the basics, the foundation to help you understand other things to for you to build upon. So you
Hmm.
can put your ladder on, a firm foundation to put your ladder on. But once you get into an industry, you learn tricks of the trade, values of the trade, business or skill. You learn everything else, which is a large percentage of what needs to be learned while you're in the field. But getting that foundation, going on EDX and getting that foundation is the first step because you need the foundation because that's what you'll need to learn everything else. So it's easy. It's getting easier. You don't have to pay whew, tens of thousands of dollars to go to school anymore. So it's really no excuse nowadays.
To a certain extent, there's no excuse. you have to have some form of structured understanding of technology, right? You can't just be like a guy who or a person, I should say, a person who sits around and drinks Fireball out of a plastic bottle, for a beverage, right? You got to have that open mindset to really say what they're doing on screen right here is actually possible,
Mm-hmm.
and how do I actually partake in something like that? And the neuroscience programs on EDX is actually free, right? And then you take into the fact that there's also somebody had a soldering iron working on that contact lens. Well, that also encompasses some form of computer engineering, some form of electrical engineering. Before you know it, I mean, let's look at it right now and just kind of recap. Contact lens that has the ability to dispense medicine, also has communication capabilities. We discuss uh, 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 sensors for paraplegic people that they're working on right now, already in the beta phase of it. And then you factor in they already have um, pacemakers that have Wi-Fi capabilities. So basically, you have this little chip inside your chest that can talk to your doctor and tell your doctor that you might be very well close to a heart attack, and the ambulance needs to be dispatched to you to give you assistance. That's where we are right now.
That's advanced stuff.
Yeah, 20 years ago, that was unheard of.
Yeah, it
That was
was.
Hollywood. Paul Bryant in the chat says, "Are we seeing the first practical nanotech?" Yes, we are.
That's amazing. Because it's one thing to just read it and say, okay, that's pretty cool. But then to think about the possibilities, that's where your imagination goes wild.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me go into the next article. All right, this one is from the Washington Post. A lot of cities want robo shuttles, including DC, but will they work? All right, from the mall to Lincoln, Nebraska. Planners across the United States are pushing slow rolling robo shuttles as a way to dip their toes into greater automation. The stubby bread box looking vehicles go about 10 miles per hour, and, and boosters say they are relatively easy and potentially transformative tool for moving people, even as autonomous cars, trucks, and minivans continue their development and rollout. Others counsel caution, raising concerns about safety, oversight, and economic viability, and fears about adding congestion to roadways and eliminating jobs. A business group in the district wants one of the self-driving shuttles to connect the Smithsonian with its millions of visitors to the city's resurgent waterfront less than a half a mile away. At Maryland's National Harbor, shuttle maker Local Motors has applied for permits to start carrying potential buyers past a replica of Air Force One as early as next month, with riders expected to open to the public later next year. Oh, this is a long article, much longer than I anticipated. I just want to read this one more paragraph. But the real fascinating field of slow moving people movers is also fraught with challenges, experts said. It's unclear where they will make sense economically and how companies and governments might work through the nitty gritty of seeing them widely deployed. A subsidiary of French transportation giant Transdev had part of its automated shuttle automation operation in Florida shut down by safety officials last month. The company didn't have federal permission to operate a school bus, but it added yellow and black markings to the EZ10 Generation 2 driverless shuttle and did so anyways, according to the National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration. What's happening now is that because the article mentions Or what's going to happen when it eliminates jobs um, and so on and so forth? What about the safety? People get drunk every single day in this country and crash their vehicles and kill other people in vehicular homicides, and no one's saying we should ban regular cars, right? No one's talking about that. No one's saying, people who choke on hot apple pies from McDonald's. We should ban apple pies.
Apple pie is really hot.
Yeah, you burn the roof of your mouth and you're like, you know what I mean? Like no one's thinking about banning apple pies, hot apple pies. No one's thinking about um, you know, these skateboard injuries that people have where they jump off a skateboard, in the pools and think they Tony Hawk, and that's they crack their head and now they, you know, paralyzed from the waist down. No one's saying anything about banning those things. It's just the robo shuttles. What's your take on this?
Question: the picture, is that a artist rendition or an actual photo?
No, it's an artist rendition.
Okay, because it's on the sidewalk. I was wondering. Okay, now in the article, the company that is providing these things, Local Motors, I think,
Yes.
they said that they are making these out of 3D printers.
Hmm.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well,
Um, Also, at the last paragraph, I guess the person talked to a regular um, person,
mhm,
and they said, "Well, I just want bus to get me there safely and fast." So that type of thinking is of older person that see, well, I don't know about that. I'm. Then they said, well, the drivers we have are fine, so they are fighting the new technology, newness.
mhm,
And you'll hear that over and over again. That same a famous talk, well, not famous, common talking point from people that are fighting this now. They said in the article, well, these things will go no more than 10 miles per hour, and I think they said that because just in case, somebody run into it or hit somebody, that's the least likely chance of major injury. But they one thing that I think people think is in the article they said, well, it's the city's already cluttered. It's already too many cars on the street. And I think what they're thinking, well, common people are thinking is saying, or are thinking is, well, people will still be driving and these things will still be on the street. Whereas, yes, those instead of thinking, yes, these things will be on the street, but the people that will tend to drive to these high populated areas won't be driving there. They'll be taking these public autonomous transportations. So in essence, there'll be less people on the road and more autonomous vehicles in these crowded places, which would make the commute even less of a burden. Um, I see this vehicle as a slow integration of autonomous driving in the future in these major cities because it's a bus. It's on the same level as taxi, and out of the articles we've been reading, a lot of the major car companies they plan to target the taxi sector as their entry point of to show the world autonomous vehicles. So it's a bus. It's going slow. It's dropping people off. It's nice and comfortable. It's not like people going to be standing on top of each other. So this is an entry point of showing the world or introducing to the world autonomous vehicles,
mhm.
and it looks friendly. In past videos, especially when we talk about robotics, that famous robot on CGTN, what people were scared of. People don't want that. This looks like a uh, big fluffy Hero 6 looking car. It doesn't look menacing. It doesn't look intimidating. It looks like it's safe.
Right, and take into consideration it takes about eight to ten passengers, right? For every 8 to 10 passengers that it takes on board, that's 8 to 10 vehicles that's not on the road. And this isn't gas; this is electric. So it's environmentally friendly, and it saves it takes other vehicles off the road. So the only reason it goes 10 miles per hour is because it's limited to 10 miles per hour. Um, it's not that it's incompetent, from a technology standpoint. It's been limited to 10 miles per hour. Now, what if it went faster? Um, if it went the speed limit, then what would happen is the reason why if it went the speed limit, it wouldn't work is because you don't have the proper infrastructure in place. You don't have the traffic lights in place. You don't have the proper, um, bike lanes and so on and so forth for the vehicle to actually function correctly um, at that speed. Now, at 10 miles per hour, it's able to keep pace. It's faster than walking pace, but it's at a safe pace where it can stop on a dime.
Hmm. It's like
Whereas
leisure.
Right. Whereas if it ran at 25, 30 miles an hour, then what happens when it needs to stop? It's not going to be able to stop in time, right? Because I think at 30 miles per hour, you need at least 15 feet to stop. That's a lot for a shuttle.
Yeah, it's cool looking. It absolutely serves a purpose. It can get a lot of other vehicles off the street, especially when there's events going on. When events going on, it's a nightmare.
Hmm.
Parking, getting there, and coming back. Everybody has the same idea of leaving early, so it's just a bottleneck everywhere. The less cars on the street, and you have these on the road. We have multiple of these on the road. They can communicate with each other, especially if they have the same technology of the article we'll get to later.
Hmm.
It just makes it easier.
Hmm. Yeah, I see the adoption being critical in more rural areas where there is no transportation to be had. So, but I don't understand why Africa doesn't adopt a lot of these robo shuttles.
They should.
Yeah.
They should because a lot of the cities are going to be crowded. I mean, traffic is everywhere, so traffic is there, and it's just horrible. Yeah, I hear stories of people eating, people that sell stuff on the side of the road. They eating dinner on the way home. It's horrible. And so you have this on the road. It just makes things better. Paul Bryan in the chat said he had major reconstructive surgery. The plastic surgeon 3D printed a new orbital floor for his eye. Zero physical difference. 3D custom printing is limitless. Absolutely cutting edge applications. That's amazing.
That's cool. We'll move on to the next article. All right, this next one is from NeoScribe. How wireless charging for electric vehicles will solve range anxiety. I thought this was pretty interesting because what most Teslas and other plug-in electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids have is exactly that, a plug-in capability. They don't have a wireless capability. So what happens when you go on a highway or an expressway, you don't have the ability to slow down because slowing down actually creates re- um, regeneration braking inside your battery. So every time you slow down, energy gets built up and charged right back into your battery. If you're on the highway for a long distance, then what happens is your battery becomes depleted because you're not slowing down. You're actually going at a steady pace. Now you pair this wireless technology up with um, you pair this wireless technology up with autonomous vehicles, and you have a game changer. Go ahead, Lionel.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's on the screen, residential systems, parking, lots on street parking, dynamic charging system. So everywhere you drive, your car is steadily getting recharged. You can go long distance without part well pulling up to what this lady's pulling up to dedicated charging station, and that range anxiety is, I would put it as top three problems people think of when they think about purchasing an EV. They think about, well, what if I get stranded? There's no way to charge my car. So this will absolutely take that out of the equation. It's very interesting. Obviously has some ways to go, but I forgot where they had um, someone had built a actual working, but they're working on it. They're working on it, and that's pretty good. And I also want to point out the video next to the up next video, Tesla, buying GM factories. I think we should put that on the one docket one day. That sounds like it's something good. Hello?
Yeah, I mean, I just muted myself. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And again, range anxiety. My car is not a fuel efficient car. It's actually a high end turbo car, but I can get 35 miles to the gallon, maybe about three 390 to the tank. That's my range. Um, Early Teslas used to get about 150 miles to the charge. Now, and I'll pull it up just so that people watching this can actually see for themselves.
But with the gas vehicles, there's no anxiety there because of the infrastructure is there. There's a gas station every couple of blocks on a corner,
Well, not
and
necessarily. Not necessarily. If you're in Death Valley, if you're on the West Coast and you're in Arizona or New Mexico or something like that, and you're traveling to Tijuana, you may not see a gas station for the next 100 plus miles.
but that's far. Those situations are far and few between. You
But
see
that's
what I'm saying?
yeah, but that's the whole point, right? So if you don't have um, the anxiety is because you don't have access to something, right? So
Hmm.
if you have an electric vehicle, your whole agenda is to go as far as possible.
Right.
Let me pull up Tesla and let me go to Model S.
It's not broadcasting.
What do you mean it's not broadcasting?
I don't see it.
No, I clicked off.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so let me share my screen. So this Tesla Model S right here, if we're looking at it, it says the range is 335 miles. Typical gas cars get around 400, 450, 500 in gas range. So the anxiety is there because the battery technology hasn't really peaked out yet. We haven't really figured out how to get more range for less dollar
Hmm.
or per cents. I should say per cents, kilowatts per cent.
It it's in the same boat these cryptocurrencies are in trying to meet and surpass the incumbent technology. It's trying to match the incumbent technology, which is gas powered vehicles, and surpass it. and have the infrastructure in place also. But we just spoke about the infrastructure.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a nice looking car.
yeah, it does look nice on screen. It does look really nice. Let's look at the Model 3. 310 miles to the charge. So,
Mm, I like the
but it's a
S.
different size too. It's also a different size.
Yeah, it's like a cross between a sedan and a hatchback. I don't like I don't
Yeah, 295 range. So when we look at the Chrysler Pacifica, Pacifica hybrid, it only gets total electric range miles 33. Yeah, you would have anxiety if you had a range of 33. Can you hear me, Lionel, or no? Can anybody else in the chat hear me? Okay.
golly.
I know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Does the white man have his foot on your neck?
No, I don't know what happened. The internet jumped. I came back and I saw two of me. Saw a doppelganger, but
Like 2 chains.
right, two two terms.
I just want to show that I don't know how much you've missed, but the Chrysler um, Pacifica plug-in hybrid actually only gets 33 miles to the charge. Did you hear that part?
No, I didn't. I didn't hear that part. That's
Right,
that's not a lot.
right. That's where the range anxiety comes from. I'll share my screen again so you can see it. But we're looking at it right here, right? So total electric driving range, 33 miles to the charge. I know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I heard you.
Okay. Okay.
Um, it God, that's not a lot, especially coming from a minivan. You would think because of the size and the batteries it can hold, you would think that it would be more than that. That's not a lot.
Hmm. Right. So that's what the article is really referring to is the range anxiety there. If you only had 33 miles to the charge, you'd be pretty you'd be biting your nails too, right?
Right. You'd be scared to leave the house.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah, that Model X. I don't like the Model X. It just don't look right.
well, it's an engineering feat, right? No other brand has really done that. So,
Yeah, that Model S looks nice. The Roadster looks like a Roadster, but it's just it it's a Roadster. But the Model S looks better.
right. All right, so move on to the next article. This one is from Teslarati.com. Tesla's full self-driving patent uses cars as Earth-based GPS satellites. All right, let's go through the. This is really technical, and I don't want to get too far into this. This speaks to your inner geek. As a test, as Tesla works on developing its full self-driving suite, the electric car maker seems to be developing a software that aims to use other vehicles on the road as Earth-based GPS satellites. Such a system would allow Tesla to improve its fleet's positioning accuracy, even in areas where GPS signals are usually compromised. Tesla noted in its patents background that while GPS signals from space-based satellites are invaluable, factors such as satellite geometry, signal blockage, um, ionospheric perturb- per- perturbation, um, and atmospheric conditions, among others, can affect the accuracy of a GPS receiver. With this in mind, there is a need to develop a system that vastly improves the location accuracy, mainly as it would be utilized extensively by full self-driving vehicles. In true Tesla fashion, the electric car maker has outlined a rather clever a solution in a recently published patent. The document titled Technologies for Vehicle Position describes a software that allows vehicles to send signals and positioning data to each other. This allows the cars to function much like Earth-based GPS satellites, feeding, feeding positioning information to other vehicles on the road. Tesla notes that Tesla notes in the patent that the software is flexible, being capable of operating via at least one network protocol, such as Ethernet, a transmission control protocol, TCP/IP, Internet Protocol, or others. Yeah, that's really geeky. Um, I think this is ingenious.
Yeah, it really is ingenious. It really is ingenious because that cuts down on what the public perceive as, oh, there's going to be a lot of accidents. It really cuts down on it if they're using other cars to for positioning mechanisms to see where the how the rest of the road is, how the outline, how the area is looking.
Mhm.
Going to go through the roof.
Right, and it doesn't really go well. It does go into detail. I just didn't want to get too far into the weeds because it's really technical. But what what I'm concerned with is if Tesla is going to allow this to be open source,
Hmm.
meaning that what happens when Nissan, Chrysler, GM, and those other autonomous vehicles on the same road? Can your software actually be compatible with bouncing those signals off of those other vehicles on the road and actually communicating? And can those same vehicles actually utilize that same software to position themselves so that they don't crash into each other? Right? Um, there's a whole lot that can actually come out of this type of platform.
Hmm. My question was, well, what I thought about, do people, let's say other people's driving on the street and it's not all autonomous vehicles, would other people want their information to be shared?
It's not
Because
people's information that will be shared; it's vehicle information that will be shared.
now when they get back to say, hey, this person owned this vehicle,
Well, if it's an autonomous vehicle, it probably doesn't belong to you anyways, right?
right? That's what I'm saying. If there's other people on the road, non-autonomous vehicles on the road, or the whole
Yeah,
privacy thing.
yeah, yeah. Your information wouldn't be shared, but the vehicle information would be shared. So VIN number is something that's already public, right? You can walk up to a car, see a car's VIN number, license plate
Hmm.
number, manufacturer date, and things like that of a vehicle can actually be, can actually be shared because it's all publicly available.
Hmm.
Now you add in the blockchain, um, and now it's immutable, and now that information is already being shared anyways.
Okay, but that's a terrific idea, though. That really is ingenious.
Hmm
That sets them apart. If it's not open source, that really sets them apart. And I hear referred, but I can't remember the article. But yeah, that really sets them apart. Tesla apart.
Hmm. All right, I'll share the next article. All right, this one is from AlJazeera.com. Singapore's vertical village wins World Architectural Prize. This is really a technological endeavor. I can't stress enough. This is really badass. But what's even more badass is the fact that there is a black man from Africa who is the leading world's architect.
Hmm. And he did. It's the same guy that did the African American Museum in D.C.
Right. He's done other big ventures too. So
I think at University in Moscow.
mhm.
Yeah, big things.
In the United States we would call that a project building, right? But in outside the United States, they are considered a vertical village. You need things like this because if you listen to the actual video, they discuss that there's a plaza downstairs. You can't see it in the video, but there's a plaza. There's shopping areas and things like that. So you got your brick and mortar stores, inside your building, and potentially even a movie theater, right? If it was that advanced.
Yeah, that building looks nice. You got a what garden on the roof? It's for cause I forgot the project manager or something like that, but he was saying that he didn't want the building to be like other senior citizen homes. This
In the ghetto.
right. It's in Singapore. Singapore is a really advanced city.
Mhm.
Um, and it's it's nice looking.
Yeah, this black man that you see on screen is actually from Ghana.
David Aj, I think that's his name.
Yeah, as far as his name is about to. Yeah, he's an ingenious architect. Yeah, that university is badass. That's like
Mm,
some spaceship. Um,
yeah, that's the museum in DC. Yeah,
yeah.
that's good stuff, man. Good stuff.
I mean, architecture. I mean, you can kind of like think of something, but it's hard to actually plan it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, some
It,
people plan that
and
out.
a lot of architects want that iconic. Well, not a lot. I won't say a lot, but
Hmm.
the ones that's interviewed, they say, I look for that iconic shape. So
Hmm. Yeah, you need guys like him. Who can, brothers like him who can actually relate to your culture and actually design something out for you that's going to be into your benefit and advantage.
agreed.
He can maintain the same, he can maintain the historic environment as it is, preserve it while at the same time building within it in the you need people who can think like this. Most of the time in the United States, they just throw up infrastructure all over the place, and it doesn't look anything like it doesn't even look like it belongs there. Just like it gentrified the whole entire area, basically.
Right. Yeah, the it's not culturally uh it's not culturally influenced. The buildings are. It's just
Right.
cold 6, 7, 30-story buildings.
Well, for the most part, somebody collected a paycheck and they ran off.
Yeah.
It's always that way in the United States. So move on to the next article. All right, this article is from TechCrunch.com. Want a free ticket to start up Battlefield Africa 2018? I do. So
Yeah, this all you right here.
we're entering the final days of leading up to start up Battlefield Africa 2018, which takes place on December 11th. We have our passports. We are packing our bags, and we can't wait to arrive in Lagos, Nigeria, to watch 15 of the continent's best startups launch launch to the world. Will you be there cheering the competitors and celebrating the richness of Africa's growing startup scene? We've sold out tickets to the day-long event, but and this is great news. We set aside a limited quantity of tickets that we're giving away for free. If you want one, act now and apply for a free ticket before they disappear. You better apply for it before this hangout ends because it's probably December 11th already over there.
Okay.
Center stage for this day-long action-packed event is, of course, our renowned pitch competition, Startup Battlefield. Out of hundreds of applicants, we went out the field to 15 remarkable early stage startup across Africa. Startup Battlefield consists of 3 preliminary rounds, 5 teams per round, followed by a final round. Teams only have 6 minutes to pitch and demo their product to a panel of expert judges. After each pitch, the judges run the presenting founders through a gauntlet of tough questions. Up to 5 teams will move on to the finals to pitch and answer the questions again. One team will claim the Startup Battle Cup along with $25,000 in no equity cash. Plus, the winning founders also win a trip for two and the opportunity to compete in a startup battlefield at a TechCrunch Disrupt in 2019. I hate when they speak in code. Um, Between rounds, we have a slew of outstanding presentations and panelists scheduled to discuss the present issues facing early stage startups in the region. Check out the conference agenda with some of the people you'll hear around from include. Anyways, this you know, what I find interesting about this article is that all these startups coming out of Africa. Now, when you talk to black people on YouTube, Africans are living in huts and they're not doing really much. What are they really doing in Africa? They're not really doing much. You have startups coming out of Africa. They only got 7 minutes to actually make a sales pitch.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly the type of stuff that I've been talking about doing all year.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get startups going. You got to get tech co-ops going, and you got to get ahead of the curve by getting in front of some of these new emerging technologies, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, cloud computing, cybersecurity, business intelligence. All of these things are going to be driving the market in the next year or so, and you still got people coming on here trying to determine or question the validity of what we talk about.
Mm-hmm. Now, what stuck out to me was the winning prize was just $25,000.
That's a lot in Nigerian money.
Yeah.
That's actually millions of dollars in Nigerian money. Let's actually do the conversion.
I think it's 106 to $1, but yeah.
USD to Nigerian naira. So let's
three.
that is $911 million naira.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So you say 25,000, but 25,000 actually goes a long way in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So it's $364 to $1 US. It's not bad. But I've been talking about black people having to get into tech co-ops and or building out tech co-ops and thinking about um, how to compete in the startup space because startups tend in the United States startups tend to get venture capitalist money, so they tend to get millions of dollars pumped into them. That's why you have startups like Bird. That's why you have startups like Lyft and Airbnb and what's the other one?
Lyft? No, you already said Lyft.
Uber.
Oh yeah, Uber.
Right. So you have that sort of you have those sort of fast growing value that $2 billion like Bird is, which started last year. They're only 12 months in, and they already have a market valuation of $2 billion. Twitter is still Twitter and Facebook are both still around for 10 years, and they're valued at 10-20 billion dollars. So in order for you to actually compete and put out a niche factor product or platform, you're gonna have to start working with each other. Black men are gonna have to start working with each other. You're gonna have to bring something to the table. You can't just say, "Yo, you gotta hook me up with a job, fam." Yo, I need the hookup, fam. That the white man got his foot on my neck. In Africa, they're not talking about that. They're not talking about the white man having his foot on, building up and actually competing. So you need people with skill sets. You need people who can program in Python and JavaScript and C++.
So yeah.
Yeah, you need people who understand Linux, like Keep It Techie in the chat. People who understand cloud technology, cybersecurity, project management. All of these. When you have people who have those skill sets and you put them in one room, something positive is going to come out of that. Nothing negative is going to come out of that. If anything,
some deal's gonna get made. Yeah.
Yeah, something's going to happen. I've seen it happen. I've been in the startup space before, and I've seen it happen. I've seen how tech people operate in startups. They operate more awkwardly, but they definitely get something productive done. Something productive comes out of it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been, and had lunch, had dinner, had wine with millennials who sold their startups, for millions of dollars on the market, $50 million, $100 million, 25, 26 years old. They're having these complex conversations because they're not worried about divisive language or divisive talking points that you hear on in the manosphere. They're having real conversations because they're focused on, a bigger agenda. We don't, for whatever reason, I don't see that happening, here.
You gonna get your ticket to this thing?
It's too late now. I can't get. It takes 20. What it takes like 17 hours just to get from here to Nigeria. So they're already into the next day, anyways. It's the
Yeah.
7/11. Today's the
Yeah.
10th.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But we need something like this in the United States too, right? We need in predominantly black areas, Baltimore, Chicago. You need these type of events to actually draw black people to it. I talked about this at NSBE, at National Society of Black Engineers, last month, that we need something like this. That's the only you're gonna get. People always talking about hiring black people and having diversity and things like that, but you have to go through all these hurdles to get hired. But what's the point if only one or two black people are going to get hired? You need to be hiring more black people than that. What I don't like is when you have one black person who has, um, the keys to the kingdom, right? They always, this person says, "Oh, I work for such and such company. I can get you in. I can get you in." That sort of keeper. We don't need any more gatekeepers. We need more people who can think from the ground up. Anyways, we'll move on to the next article. All right, this next video is from CGTN. China's China sets exploration on the dark side of the moon. What's your take on this, Lino? Lino can't. Can you hear me?
Yeah. My internet is dropping every now and then. Okay. Did you go over this article?
No. I was waiting on you. I asked you what did you think about this?
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting. Most people don't know that the moon don't rotate, the tidal lock. So there's been a huge interest on the dark side of the moon for centuries. And China is actually going to check it out, see what's out there, what's on the other side of the moon.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hopefully they pass over that American flag that was planted there back in the '60s.
Oh man, space wind took that away.
Oh yeah, maybe there's a Confederate flag up there.
Ooh, what if it is? What if it is? What if it is? Let's roll with that. What if it is? Oh my God.
Confederate flag.
Yeah. Oh my God. Maybe that's why America don't want nobody to go up there to see to see the Confederate flag.
Hmm.
What a plot twist that would be. But yeah, this is interesting. I'm even I want to know what's on the other side of the moon, what's on the dark side of the moon, because it don't turn. It's in a tidal lock. So that what because it's not exposed to the sun, what changed? Is it different on that side? You know what I mean?
It's got to be ice cold over there.
Yeah.
I mean, the moon is cold. It's cold by itself. But so if there's no sun getting to that side, it's got to be ice cold. It's got to be sheets of ice over there.
Yeah, gotta be. So it's water on the moon. Well, if it is, that means the water is water on the moon.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting though.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. All right, move on to the next article. All right, this one is from Engadget.com. NASA successfully tests OSIRIS-REx robotic arm ahead of arrival. NASA spacecraft OSIRIS-REx is just 75 miles from its destination, and just like you would near the end of just like you would near the end of light, it's starting to stretch out. The craft successfully tested its touch and go simple acquisition mechanism, TAGSIM, a robotic arm that will allow it to grab samples from the surface of the asteroid Bennu. Let me play the video because I think that's more relevant. What? What is that? Yeah. Um. Actually, here it is right here. Let me play that video. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think it could do that. I know. You have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, it said Lockheed Martin worked with them. Pretty cool. Um, I like the way in the article they structured like the elbow, similar to the elbow, the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist joints, and the way they collected the dust was blowing air in where it the suction touched the surface of the asteroid, blowing air down in order to kick the dust up into the, I guess, the pockets where the to trap the air so it'll bring it back. That's pretty cool. That's
Hmm.
awesome, man.
Yeah, I think it's a all these technological ventures are actually pretty amazing to me that it even works. It's amazing that you can even get a plane off the ground, much less a satellite into space. So
Really? Okay.
yeah, planes are hard to get off the ground because there's so many moving pieces and parts and velocity and things of that nature.
Mm.
I mean, if you go back to the first plane that was actually the Kitty Hawk plane, the Wright brothers. It wasn't that long ago. It was within your grandparents' lifetime that had happened.
Yeah, leaps and bounds. So
Yeah.
from now to our grandchildren, I wonder what was going to be then. Leaps and bounds, brother. Leaps and bounds.
Hmm. All right, let's get to the next article. What is this? All right, Wired.com. Watch SpaceX attempt its wickedly complex satellite launch. So let me read the first paragraph. Update. After delays, this launch successfully took place on Monday, December the 3rd. Okay. On Sunday, SpaceX plans to hoist into space the largest cosmic carpool to depart from the U.S. soil. The California-based aerospace company has flexed its ride-sharing muscles in a carefully choreographed orbital ballet as its flagship rocket, the Falcon 9, prepares to launch 64 small satellites into orbit. So we went over an article before that had the microsatellites we were talking about before. These are briefcase satellites, these sort of shoebox satellites, and that there was a actual open source platform that you can actually build a satellite from, microsatellite from. And what I think what this is doing is actually like as the article said in the first paragraph, is that it's creating a ride-sharing program for microsatellites. So let's look at it. I know you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, the micro satellites per the article is, well, and other articles we had in the past, is starting to become a big business. It's much more cost effective because a lot more people want their satellites in space. Other people are paying a price, which pays for the taxi ride up there plus more. Um, this this launch was on the same day as that China exploration of the moon, wasn't it? December 3rd.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. That's so that goes to show they went up the same day. You know, the taxi service, the space taxi service.
Hmm.
Um, the way the article said that they were going to dispense the satellites over a 5 hour period, couple minutes from each other to make sure they don't bump into each other, to make sure they're away from the I forgot what they call it. It's like the upper fuel something and a lower fuel something. Make sure they're far away so they don't crash into other satellites that's coming from the same thing. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing saying that we couldn't design a microsatellite and get ours up. Piggyback on the same ride-sharing platform.
Right, right. I mean, it's there. Satellites smaller. It means the price to get up there is cheaper because there's more people. There's other people that's in there paying for the fuel to and the fee to get the satellite up there. So it's possible. It's starting to become cost effective. It's well within reach, I would say.
Yeah, probably by like 2020, after 2020, you're gonna see the cost would be so much cheaper. It's almost a given that you have to get involved. Not getting
Right.
involved will be a disservice to you.
Right. Like, well, you never sent a satellite into space. Good. What are you doing with your life? Type of deal.
Yeah, yeah. And we'll
But
probably
this
have to do a we'll probably have to do a hangout just on microsatellites. That's probably something
mhm,
we'll do in January.
that's pretty interesting. That's interesting.
Yep. Cube satellites. That's what they call them. Cube.
Yeah, cube stats. One cube stats.
Yeah, cube. All right, let's look at this last one. All right, this next one is from JW Astronomy. I hope we don't get in trouble for playing his space discovery, but we have to watch this.
Yeah, that sun is. Oh man, it's a nice big dirty yellow, and those sunspots. People don't realize how huge those sunspots are. Earth can fit in some of those sunspots.
Really?
Yeah, they're huge. Not all sunspots are the same size, but some are so big where Earth can fit in.
Hmm.
I mean, then they last so long. The sun is huge, man. It's yeah, it's oh man. I like the wavy. because this is real time.
Hmm.
He got up in there. I bet you that sunspot was a process image right there. I bet you that sunspot is bigger than Earth.
Hmm.
That's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how he goes about doing processing, image processing and things of that nature.
Uh, Yeah, Mercury and Venus didn't show up too well. Oops, my bad. Didn't show up too well. The
You're breaking up
moon's.
right now.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, mic
Yep.
check. Can
Yep.
can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Mercury and Venus didn't show up too well. But he did the moon, which on his channel always shows up well because of its proximity. Wow, look at that bumpy face.
You talking about
Mm.
Serena? Or you talking about Venus?
Ah, that's a good one. Oh, but yeah, look at that pimple face moon.
That's funny. I don't see an American flag on here.
Ah, or a Confederate flag.
And that's like high definition.
Hmm.
I haven't seen anything. I don't even see NASA putting out content like that. Like in terms of the quality.
Now, question: do he on his channel? Do he talk about, hey, I haven't seen the moon?
Say that one more time.
On his channel, do he talk about, hey, I haven't seen the moon?
Not necessarily. I've talked to him before.
Mm,
He doesn't really go into all that stuff like that. He doesn't get conversational like that. He just basically it's a yes or no question for him or answer for him.
okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good image. He didn't do Mars too often. Well, in this one, I don't think I saw it.
Might be positioning
Okay.
because I don't even know if Mars rotates. You know, Mars doesn't rotate, does it? Because it doesn't have a moon.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's quality, man. I gotta give it to him. It takes a lot of patience.
Hmm. Hey, it's Earth. Okay. I knew it. I knew it.
Mm. It must be in the conscious community.
Okay, there's Mars. There's Mars. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty blurry. Yeah, that's nice. That is nice right there.
Hmm. Those are yeah. Okay, I was just about to say those are moons on the side.
Yeah, you actually can see the moons.
Yeah, but it has 15 moons, doesn't it?
Yeah, you see the ones passing in front of it. He Rewind some. Like off in the distance, up to the top right, you see Titan, but that's like IO and the second one that passed, because he's rewinding right here. The second one that passed, that one right there,
Hmm.
that's IO, and there's I forgot the other one. That's a nice picture of Saturn.
That's just crazy.
Nice picture of Saturn. You see the rings, real nice.
Yeah, that thing's lit.
And the other two, it's pretty not clear. Yeah, like yeah. I mean, you could tell they're blue, but no, that's about it.
Which shot was your favorite?
This Saturn. Saturn was that was the best one. Saturn was the first one, and the other before that, Jupiter.
Yeah, it seems like Jupiter and Saturn is like the range limit for that telescope, right? I would say because it gets so much detail out of it, but when it comes to Neptune and um, all the other planets, it seems to be blurred out or it's just washed out to that effect.
Now I wonder if it's because uh they're so big, you know.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, so I want to share the screen again because he did put the link in the description for his telescope.
Hmm. There you go, Skywatcher.
Hmm. And this is with this telescope. The other telescopes that we were looking at for Celestron, the that big cannon that you was looking at, that's like what, 8 grand?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
if those are better than this, and this is really good, you're gonna be blown.
Right.
You're gonna blow yourself right out your shoes looking at the planets through that telescope. Then the Celestron.
That's 760 compared to the other one. It's a good price.
Yeah, but I gotta go big every single time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, yeah,
It's either
yeah.
get the big boy or go home.
Right, right.
That's how I see it, man. I can't be coming half stepping with the old
Right,
stuff. I come with the big stuff.
right. Because it's like now that you know that the big telescope is there and what
Hmm.
it can do, it's like why would you even get this one?
And this is the camera that he uses, the Canon.
Hmm.
Um, the E160D. A lot of people go for the Rebel, but the Rebel is not what you need. It's actually this one.
Now on his page, he has a link on how to connect the camera to the telescope.
Hmm.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Any questions in the chat?
I think Richard had one in the chat. What does he say? So this is off topic, but what y'all think of what y'all think of doing business with drones? Just bought one for myself for Christmas. Um, it depends on what you're going to be using the drone for. I mean, having drones just to have drones. I've had drones before, and then you know, it's more of a time consumption thing, right? You have to find time to actually use it. You can't use it at night. What's the point?
Mm-hmm. Paul Bryant won't talk to me about title lock. Okay, no problem.
What is that via email? Is that? I mean, I don't see the reference to it.
Uh, yeah, this was a good show, man.
Yes, sir.
Very good show. I'm surprised not too many other people came on.
Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing some questions in the chat, but I think a lot of people are just listening. So
Mm-hmm.
if anybody else doesn't have anything, then what we'll do is we'll shut it down for tonight. Actually, I do have one video. Yeah, let me play that because that's something I wanted to cover. It's a short video too. Yeah. All right, this video is from CCTV. Hydrogen fuel technology. So basically, hydrogen fuel technology is more eco-friendly than lithium battery technology. The only vehicles I've seen on the road that actually use fuel cell, um, besides commercial vehicles like buses, Toyota, I think had a FCV, and then I think Toyota was actually working with BMW on fuel cell.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really need. I know we have fuel cells here in Boston for buses, but car wise, I know Toyota and BMW were really big on this a few years ago, and it gets more range, and it's a lot easier to manage than lithium batteries. So I'd be interested in seeing where the technology goes on that behalf.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really big, really key, because the the problem, we talked about range anxiety from that article. The problem with lithium batteries is it's very expensive to dig up and actually manufacture and process, to process and manufacture, in comparison to fuel cell. Fuel cell is a lot cheaper, but um, it's not as easy to implement because a lot of your cars don't have, or your manufacturers don't have the motors and engines available for fuel cell capabilities. So,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll see what happens in the next year or so. By 2020, I think I've seen Toyota cars on the road. I think Honda also has a fuel cell Civic. I want to say it's a Civic. I think they have a FCV. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Hey man, when Tesla finally figure out what they gonna figure out. And Model S, man.
Well, Tesla is all in with lithium, so they cornered the market on lithium development.
Mm.
I see something in the chat. Paul Bryant says, Mike, how can the startups in Africa leverage themselves into viability? They have to work with governments. You have to work with local governments and state government. The reason being is that Africa needs infrastructure, and governments don't have a whole lot of money for infrastructure. And you have these startups that can actually provide alternative means of indigenous growth. Um, from a startup perspective, because who better knows your environment than the people on the ground? So
Hmm.
let those people create a alternative platform for developing the infrastructure that's in place. Richard says you all should do a show on how black programmers. You all should do a show on how black programmers on process on startup. Do you want to say that question, Alana?
No.
Richard, retype that question because we don't understand it. If you speak Creole, then put it in Creole. Um, y'all should do a show on how black programmers, how we can start one. But, hmm.
Starting black.
Eh, say that again, Lionel.
No, I was just reading out loud.
Yeah, I still don't understand the question. Retype that whole entire question out, Richard.
I think he's saying black programmers can start a startup, maybe.
But that still doesn't make any sense.
Or what kind of startup, like, pertaining to what they do. I don't know.
Yeah, I think sometimes black people get caught up in the whole terminology and don't really understand the
Okay, he was
distinction
saying no.
of. Excuse me.
Okay, he said yes. I think
Saying yes to what?
he probably saying yes to how black programmers can start a startup. I think it probably depends on the startup. You know.
Right. Well, programming is a function of a role, right? So just because you can program doesn't mean you just create a startup. That's not how it works, right? There has to be some form of agenda. An agenda needs to be put on the table for what the startup is going to be about. Anybody can write code, whether it's HTML or it's Python or it's C++ or Java. Anybody can write code. Um, there has to be an agenda. What exactly is the startup focused on? You have a bunch of programmers, but there's no agenda, then you just have a bunch of programmers writing code. And what the hell are they writing code for? So there has to be an agenda as to what your startup is going to be focused on. You have anything you want to add
I
to that,
got
Lano?
you. Yeah, yeah. I understand what you're saying.
Hmm. Paul Bryant says, Mike, from your perspective, what's keeping black startups from leveraging themselves into viability here and then working with African startups? Linguistics is one. Um, different languages, right? Different African countries have different languages, and I think too, it's environment, right? So what Chicago needs is different than what um, Lagos needs. The capital would need in Nigeria. Um, so there's two different ways of approaching that. Um, Now, when you start talking about building a multinational corporation, that's different. A multinational startup, really unheard of, primarily because startups don't turn revenue in. You don't. If you're not turning revenue, then you can't be really multinational in that regard. Um, what are you really multinational for?
Hmm.
Now, what could happen is um, Africa doesn't have the same exact laws as the United States, right? So, in the United States, you need you have what do you call that? Equal opportunity employment. In Africa, you don't have those same standards. So, in the United States, if you have a corporation, it can't be all black, anyways. You have to have some diversity in your environment. You have to go hire a white person for that matter. Most of your HBCUs are starting to have that problem now where white people are taking advantage of affirmative action to get inside their schools. Same thing's going to happen in America where you have white people trying to get inside your corporation because they are a minority themselves because you outnumber them. In Africa, you don't have that problem where you can just hire black people nonstop because the whole continent is black.
Mm.
So what's keeping them back is a lot of domestic policy. He says, I know that, but what what's keeping black startups from making inroads into viability here? What's keeping them from making viability here is that, and I think we talked about this on the hangout before, is that we we don't get taken seriously from a market perspective. No, I explained the situation before, and I think on the Black IT Summit here on the Brain Trust about a week or so ago. You, I was giving a presentation where I was quoting data straight from Microsoft's site, and the person in the room who was attending this presentation did not take what I said seriously, not because the information was not factual, but because I was saying it.
Hmm.
So a lot of people, and this isn't just a white person thing. This is a black person thing too. When you look at the Black Brain Trust, a lot of people don't come to the Black Brain Trust because they don't trust the information, despite the fact that we're quoting straight from the article itself. So a lot of that has to do with trust, and we can't get to market because people don't trust the product or the um, the work ethic and that's involved in it.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, okay.
Yeah, right. So this ain't as quality. The white man's ice is basically colder. That's why you have lack of viability here in the United States.
It's it's even if it's right, but because it's coming from you, it
Right.
can't be right.
Yeah, black people have to break that culture. That's where their problem is. Richard says, I understand you have to have an idea and a business plan, but I would like your thoughts on how we should go about it. I would think black startups would face different challenges from your standards. Um, so the way how we should go about it, to your question, Richard, is that you have to have people who have the skill set that actually comes to the table to fulfill that agenda. Tech co-ops work best when people have something to bring to the table, and there's an overall overarching agenda. Uh, let's say we had a plan for blockchain, right? We wanted to implement a proprietary or a specific type of blockchain setup. Now, blockchain takes a lot of coding and stuff that gets involved, and quality assurance and quality engineering and project management need to meet deadlines and things of that nature. You need people who can actually be on the same wavelength for that agenda. Um,
Yeah, because it takes
I
time.
don't. Yeah. Go ahead, Mano.
No, I'm saying it takes time. You can't half step it.
Mhm.
Plus, it may be a good idea, but no one accepts it in the beginning, so you really gotta put more time in it.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
I remember years ago, probably like around Obama was in office, or first came into office. Atlanta was considered to be a black mecca for startups.
Mm,
I don't know what happened since then. I haven't been back to Atlanta in a couple of years, but when I was down there, they have a strong black IT tech space down there.
okay.
They was considering Atlanta to be the black Silicon Valley. That's how strong it was.
But now it's considered something else.
Well, not so much that it's considered something else. I think they went through their own .com bubble.
Hmm.
There's a lot of tech companies in Atlanta, but the problem is, I think for black tech startups, it's different, right? We don't get this, as I was mentioning earlier, we don't get the same funding. We don't get the same sort of support.
Right, right.
We don't get the same sort of support. Whereas you go to Silicon Valley and you look at a lot of these tech startups, they get millions of dollars in funding, and they get and there's a lot of trust behind what they're going to do. And a lot of these companies actually fail. We see a lot of shit coins in the crypto space, and people put a lot of money behind that. But when it comes to black tech people, what happens is we don't get the same support, so therefore there's no urgency to actually do anything.
Okay.
Right? Urgency becomes a problem. We don't see that. We think that using the technology is the same as driving the technology, and because we're not driving it, therefore we're not actually getting that sort of experience of cultivating something new. So we
What's
just
this?
use it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, we just use the technology, and then we don't really understand it.
Yeah, that support is not there either.
Yeah, the moral support is not there. The moral support is not there. Paul Bryant says something I experienced when I worked on Wall Street was black men had a fear to step out of the norm and work together, even though we all had credentials and experience. Yeah. So the fear usually comes from it. If you weren't in the fraternity, that fear was there, right? If you're in the fraternity, if you're an alpha or you're a Q, that it's not that hard. Even for black women, if you were a Delta or AKA, it's easy to work with other AKAs and Deltas and Sigmas because y'all all from the same camp. But if you weren't from the same camp, you're kind of apprehensive about dealing with somebody that you don't know about their work ethic because black people have a reputation for being lazy, despite the fact that evidence shows otherwise. Black people are in the IT space. Black people are some of the hardest working IT people that you can come across, and when you go on LinkedIn, if you look at a lot of black people's IT profiles, you'll see there's a lot of certifications. There's a lot of master's degrees, bachelor's degrees. When I was at the National Society of Black Engineers regional conference last month, all of these black men, young black men, bachelor's degree, double bachelor's degree, master's degree, they had the credentials. So this idea that you know, black people, especially black men, are untrustworthy because of work ethic or perceived work ethic is
Hmm.
that it's the perception that's the problem. Too much perception and not enough actuality to actually pinpoint whether or not um, something's going to get done or something. Because when I look back at the brain trust, when we first got started, we had how long did we discuss doing the brain trust before we actually started the brain trust? We didn't even have a name, right? We didn't even have a name. So what did we spend like what a couple weeks, a month before we even got started? I think
Right.
maybe just about a couple weeks. 'Cause we got started in April, and
Hmm.
a lot of the stuff that hit the fan was in March. So we had maybe two and a half weeks before we decided, okay, let's go ahead and do this.
Yeah,
And
and
then what? And then how many more weeks before we got a name?
Yeah, we just started. After, but like we didn't wait for a name. We just said, okay, we got this.
Hmm. But how long was it before we got the name Brain Trust? Maybe about a month and a half,
Yeah,
about June or so.
yeah,
Yeah. So April, May, June. Yeah, it's about June, right? So when the way we operate the Brain Trust is like a startup, is like an intellectual co-op, right? So everybody has to contribute some form of article or some form of analysis. You have guys like Anti Gravity,
yeah,
Nicole. You have
complex.
Complex, who's familiar with racing and um, microtransportation, cannabis.
He even had Kirigakuri come on here well. You
And Dollar Will's a technical guy. He's a union guy. So this is an intellectual co-op. This is for thinking black men. Some assembly required, right?
mhm,
Um, we are moving in that space from a social media perspective, and we're leveraging YouTube as infrastructure. So, for Rich's question, how do black people really go about it? It starts by having these sort of conversations. We read these articles because we want to do a deeper dive and get more analysis on not just the article itself, but how it relates to black people and black men, more importantly.
right.
Make a case for it.
And the stuff we talk about, man, some articles we talk about, we get into it. They have to inspire black men, even if they're looking at the rerun. I mean, my goodness.
Right. It takes time. Some of the startups I've been at before, um, they took 6 months before they could even go to a venture capitalist.
Hmm.
And then by the time they got to a venture capitalist, it took another 6 months before they even hit the market. And then another 6 months after that before they even had a functional product. So there's 18 months in that span.
I think we take away the stigma of, oh, black people don't do that, can't, or whatever the case may be. I think we take that stigma away.
Hmm. It's also a cultural issue, right? So the cultural issue says that, well, in order for you to be masculine, this whole alpha male, beta male thing, that that language is divisive,
Hmm.
and what it does is it muddies up the waters, and now you completely lost the nature of what you came here to do.
Hmm.
So now you can't think about how you would implement blockchain in whether it's Africa or Haiti or some other melanated place. You have a hard time thinking because the area is so filled with smoke. It's cancerous.
Right, right. That's a good analogy. That's a good analogy.
So you have to have like-minded people coming to the table and things of that nature. I think NISB does a great job at doing that. For those of you who have not signed up, you should actually sign up for NISB. They do a good job at bringing those type of people to the table, but once you get those people to the table, now you need funding. Those people got to eat too, right? Whether it's minimum wage or it's sustainable living, um, they have to be compensated for their work, and I think that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people. Be like, because people are used to seeing white people get paid lots and lots of money, but what happens when it becomes black men? Oh, he ain't worth 100,000. He's not worth you know uh, such and such and such. So you feel that you don't need to compensate him for for what the market says that he should be compensated for.
Right.
You know, a Linux engineer or a Linux admin or something like that, or a network admin, someone who can code for blockchain. Those people command at least $80 an hour. I don't care where you go in this country. It's $80 an hour average.
Mhm.
If you think that, well, I'll just give them like $20, an hour. No, it doesn't work that way. That don't work like that. Those people need to be compensated. And I think a lot of the times that hurdle of economics also gets in the way of who should be compensated more and so on and so forth. But if you have a tech co-op, then what you have is equal stake within the project itself.
Nah, you can't do everything by yourself. You need that team. Nobody's an island. Yeah. So yeah, you need that team.
Yeah, I mean, to Rich's point, um, Twitter, Facebook is still considered startups, even 10 years after they've launched. And nobody seems to have a problem with Facebook being a startup or Twitter being a startup, and not understanding that a startup is a company that has not turned revenue. That's what a startup is. A fully functional company like Fidelity or uh, uh, um, J.P. Morgan or something like that. Those are full-fledged companies. They turn revenue every single quarter, not every year, but every quarter.
Mhm. A lot of revenue at that.
Yeah, they're able to make payroll. If you're in a startup, you may not be able to make payroll. So for a lot of people in startups, they tend to eat a lot of ramen noodles. They tend to not spend as much
Mm.
because that's the nature. You're on a fixed budget.
But I, I think people are in love with the glamour, and the story. They
Mhm.
can't get with the story.
Right? They don't understand sweat equity.
Right.
Sweat equity. Yeah. So just to kind of recap and summarize what we were saying is that the reason why you don't see a lot of black startups making inroads is that culture plays a role, and number two, stigma plays a role, and three, um, uh, organization. Everybody's all dispersed from around the country. You got to at least meet once a quarter for a startup. Startups don't really work well unless they actually have FaceTime. I mean, they have something called WeWork, which is a new startup themselves who acquire all these working um, just real estate space for work, and you
Hmm.
can kind of rent out this space and for a day or a week or whatever it is, and they have conference rooms and stuff like that. You can actually go into these places and uh, for a startup, that's exactly what it's for. It's for a startup so that they don't have to have millions of dollars invested into office space and stuff like that. That structure is already there. That infrastructure is there. So if you need to use a conference room or something to that effect for drawing out plans and doing war, you know, for a war room, that's already there. So the money invested is now the money that you need to spend is actually a lot cheaper than what it was before. So
Great
economic
talk.
finance comes into play as another bullet to why black people have a hard time getting into a startup game because the cost.
Kind of like incubators.
Yeah, that's exactly what you need. In Boston, we have a black incubator base in the city building. So they have there's a tech space down there, for incubators, but it's not enough. It gets utilized for other reasons, but the more important fact is that um, black people aren't meeting because they're so dispersed.
Hmm.
Gentrification plays a role. Um, not communicating or not being able to communicate. the chat. See some stuff come in. Um, Paul says, Richard, learn business. If you're not well versed, hire a good business manager. A key mistake of people make is not understanding the money side of running a business. Absolutely, Paul. Absolutely. If you're not putting at least 10% up out of your own pocket for the value of what you need, right? So if you're a company, if you're a startup and you need 100,000 out the gate, you got to be able to put up that 10,000
Right.
before an angel investor even considers talking to you. Before the bank even considers talking to you, how much of your money did you put up? And the problem is, a lot of black people don't want to put up any money.
You need that skin in the game.
Say that again.
They need skin in the game.
Right. Yeah, you got to understand your target market too. You can't just say, "Oh, it would be dope if I did this." You don't even know your demographic.
Hmm.
You don't
And you
even know.
can't and you can't say, "Oh, it's for everyone." That's not it. No, it's not gonna work. You need to specify.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. You don't even know what your target demographic is. Did you even do the research? You got companies that, like I said before, you got startup companies that spend 6 months just doing research. They're in the alpha phase. You won't hear about them because they're not going to do too much talking because they still have to do a lot of structuring,
Hmm.
um, human resource structuring, project management, project planning, things of that nature have to be done first, and then you go into, okay, we met the VC, or we met the angel investor. Um, Now you have to have that blueprint where the angel investor or the VC could look at it and say, okay, you need this, and this. Okay, this is how it's going to work. This is the budget that's going to be in place, so on and so forth. Because you're going to need to hire people. You're going to need somebody who can write code, or somebody who can overlook the code that was written. Um, you're going to need to borrow or to leverage Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure. All of that stuff comes into play. And once you put that down on a sheet and say, this is the accumulated cost for the year of what we're going to need. We're going to need $800,000 in order for us to even think about getting this whole entire thing off the ground.
Hmm.
Because once the code gets written, once the skeleton, the frame of the project gets put in place, and it's visible to the VC or the angel investor, then you can have a conversation about what we're going to do for year number 2, year number 3, year number 4, because depending on how much time it's going to take for code to get for things to get put in place, that can determine your year-to-year growth.
You need a minimum viable product. That's a minimal viable product.
Hmm.
Some you can show the investors, hey, we doing this. This is how it's going to look. This
Hmm.
is how it's going to work. Something they can see.
And it
And
has to.
go ahead.
Go ahead, finish.
I was just gonna say something they can see, something you can walk them through.
And it has to be something that's real. It can't just be some pie in the sky type of idea and be like, oh yeah, well, what I wanted to do was open up a rap studio and let everybody come in and then charge them for money. No, it don't work that way. That's a cockamamie scheme.
Right, right. Charge them $20 at the door. No, that's not gonna work.
Yeah, that's a cockamamie scheme, man. You got to have, if every company starting now, either has a website or it has an app available on the App Store, whether it's Google Play or Apple's App Store. It's just
Hmm.
that simple. You're already a tech startup at some point, or you have
Right.
some tech some tech nutrients involved in the development of your company.
But it's fun though. I admit it's fun doing it as long as you are focused. Um, what's the saying? It's you remember the journey, not I forgot. When you get to the top, the things you remember is the journey to the top.
Hmm.
You know, that's the adventure you remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fun, but you do have to understand some type of business, even if it's hiring someone that can help you along the way, lawyers and things like that. You do need skin in the game. You do need to show people that hey, I'm in it. Um, I'm not just here to not succeed, or just to spend money.
Paul Bryant in the chat says 80% of businesses make zero profit the first year. All businesses, even a tech startup, isn't immune to the classic foundation of business economics. I'm willing to share mine, but, and there is always a but, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
No, Paul's hitting on something right now. I want to see what else he's going to say to it. Um, but all of the hate whitey talk is counterproductive. It's about business and money. Focus on that. Yeah, Paul's hitting it right on the head. And we've been saying that on here. We never have a hangout where we talk about technology, whether it's one in every three space startups is going to be a space startup or microtransportation, blockchain, cryptocurrency. We never utilize the talking point of we can't do that because the white man said so. Right. So that our ability to channel that out allows us to think on a higher level and have a more complex conversation because um, the goal is a lot more bigger than you know the the um, the disruptive talking points.
Mm.
And I think that's why you see most predominantly black neighborhoods don't really have anything innovative coming out of it because everything has been reduced down to very basic, generic cultural talking points that says, um, "Look at my new J's,
Yeah.
the new Dubs. Um, Listen to my mixtape. I'm about to drop another one. Mitchell and S jerseys, racing jackets, and so on and so forth. So the material aspect is clouding the judgment of the technical aspect.
Hmm.
If that makes any sense, you can't think as fast as the non-black people because you're not your head is not in that space,
That's a good point.
and you haven't had that life experience.
Much of your
You haven't been around those circles. Go ahead.
much of your thinking is on the wrong thing. Uh, so if you got 100% of your thinking, like 40% is thinking about things that don't matter, Jordans and clothes and stuff and girls. Oh, okay, we got complex here, so I know what I'm gonna do is mute up for complex. 'Cause I know he about to take this to another level.
Hey, what's going on, y'all?
What's going on, bro?
What's going on? How
I,
you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm getting in late on the discussion, but I mean, I had to get away for a second and chime in on the whole startup culture Mike's been talking about. I mean, he's just been hitting every single point about this. And we just as black men, particularly, um, we don't view ourselves as people who can create things that could have a market share in the industry. Like we don't think along those lines to create things to compete large scale. We're just largely relegated to what Mike was just talking about, the end user and the consumer. the Jays, we're buying the Jays, buying the jerseys. We're buying the stuff, and we're being representatives of other people's innovations, other people's products, right? We'll pitch it. We're the market men for it. We'll do all that, but don't own the factories. It's not anything where you own the patents, the engineering, came from a original thought or idea of ours. So we're missing that whole part of the industrial scheme there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think what Paul Bryant was mentioning in the chat, we were kind of just chatting, and he had mentioned in there that he was working in Wall Street, and there's just a lack of there's a lack of an initiative or a desire for brothers to kind of like band together and then maybe you know uh, you know walk out of that environment and then start to pool their knowledge and resources to create their own space. I mean, it happens a lot of times, man. A lot of people will work at a company. That company got their funding. They got up somewhere, and then a few of them left to go and start up another company. So we don't have that mindset, man. We don't really think to innovate on that level. We innovate in things that really just aren't important in the grand scheme. That's really what we do.
Yeah, non-essentials and things that are unproductive.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Black people's idea of a startup, back in the day was actually a hip hop crew. If you can break dance, that was there was an industry for hip hop early in its infancy. DJing, breakdancing, MCing, the battling,
Yep.
the fashion, the people who can create the tracksuits in the show toe Adidas and the Kango hats. There was an industry for all that stuff. The leather jackets, the 8-ball jackets, and stuff like that. There was an industry for that, but now that industry has come and gone, and we're in the fourth industrial revolution where you have to have some form of literacy, some form of digital literacy. It's not good enough. It's not enough that you know Facebook. It's not enough that you have the latest iPhone. You have to actually be able to drive the technology. That has to be key. It's not enough that you can rent a car for your music video, or it's not enough that you do Uber and Lyft, but you don't understand how the technology works and how it can actually be beneficial to you and everybody in your circle.
Exactly. No, that's it. And what happens is that, with this whole fourth industrial technological shift, what happens is that it fundamentally changes all other industries, right? Like you said, the underlying technology that drives everything else, it drives everything that you're using. Okay, that fundamentally has changed. So again, it's sort of like being behind the 8 ball. If you're not even cognizant of the fundamental technology that's changing, the fundamental technology that'll then become the backbone of everything that you're using now, then you're almost kind of like behind the ball double, right? Because you're already kind of relegated to just an end user or consumer in the current context, but then you have this new sort of blockchain based, new sharing economy based, all these new concepts that are driving technology and the way things are done. And that's where like you said, man, we're largely just, like absent.
Yeah, because
like absent.
there's a knowledge gap, there's a skills gap, there's also a a uh, a uh, um, a dialogue gap in complex thought. We're just not having that conversation because people are afraid to have that conversation. I mean, look at our hangout now. You have 15 people on here. The most we had on here tonight was 18. Not that we are not grateful for the people that have already come here and have hit the like button, but when I go to other hangouts and I see that there's 500 to 1,000 people in the hangout and they're talking about nothing in the manosphere, I have a problem with that. I see that as time wasting.
Well, we've talked about that one. I think you and I both have a serious problem with that one, because it's basically it's in your face, right? There's no way to get around it. I've even talked to Nagone about this a little bit too. Because for me, it's an indicator of like what's important, right? It's particularly to black men. Um, and so when it's largely the same narrative being played over and over and over, and then you're hearing different angles of the same thing, but none of it is even remotely dealing with any sort of fourth industrial based paradigms,
Mhm.
right? Then yeah, you kind of like you're like, wait, dude, like, wait, what? Like, is this really what's important right now? Like, what? Like you know, it's kind of like like well, there's some stuff that we're going to be presenting here in the next few weeks, right? With regards to some of our own projects that we're going to be rolling out for 2019, just to demonstrate that not only do we discuss these things, but we also are engaging in the physical practice of rolling these things out and putting these types of technologies and services into practice, and opening up the platform to bring other people in to get involved to grow these platforms out. I mean, so when you don't hear or you don't even see like an interest in pursuing these things, meanwhile, companies like Bird, Mike, you just said, dude, 18 months is typically going to be like your initial startup cycle from the
Tape out.
time you go from from the time you go from initial idea or conception to the first time you touch some VC money. 18 months. Okay. Bird went to $2 billion evaluation in how long? Was it 2 years? It took him 2 years to
2017.
get
2017. So it only took them 13 months to get to a value
13
of
months.
billion.
They fucking dude, 13 months. They clipped 18 months and hit $2 billion valuation in 13 months. Think about what motherfuckers could do if they just put some goddamn brain power together. What they could probably accomplish in about, I don't know, 12 to 24 months, 1 to 2 years.
Mhm.
It's amazing to me how you can just look at a company like Bird, right? And for the record, it's a company that I do contract work for, but I know exactly what the hell's going on with that company. And it's amazing, but if that can happen, and that's an indicator of what can happen when someone just, people coalesce on an idea
Mhm.
and they bring all their talents and their resources together and they execute it. That's all it is. It's not that like it doesn't we don't have to get on some sort of like grand accord with black women in order for us to then turn around and say, all right, let's get to work. That's bullshit. You can start now.
Mhm.
And you can probably have something in about 13, 18 months, 24 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we operate the brain trust differently. I mean, complex and anti gravity came from Business Wealth and Power on YouTube. They had their own
Hmm.
discussions going, but the way we operate the brain trust is that it's a co-op. It's an
It's
intellectual
co-op.
co-op.
Yep.
It's a startup. We are a startup. We are self-funded. We do not take um, any super chat money or Patreons or streaming labs. We don't have all of the your multiple streams of revenue coming in from third party sources because we are not doing this for the profitable for the profit, right? We're doing this as a nonprofit. We're sharing information that other groups of people who are not black are not going to share with you at all. They're not
That
having those conversations
that's
with you.
that's it right there.
They're not having those conversations. I can tell you from experience and being in the IT space and being around other millennials in the startups. There's millennials right now that live right maybe 15 minutes away from me that are millionaires because they sold their startups. They create their startup and then they move on to the next one.
Hmm.
They sell it to the VC. VC buys it for 25 million. They either retain stake or they give up full stake and they're gone. They go start something else.
They'll start something
Boston,
else.
yeah, Boston is the number one city in the country for tech startups for the last 2 years. More tech startups come out of here than comes out of Silicon Valley, and that's because we have MIT, we have Harvard, and then we have
Hmm.
a whole bunch of other people who came from big corporate 100, corporate 500, Cisco, IBM, HP. They came from there and then they started their own stuff and then they moved on and started something else. So there's a lot of startups being
Yep.
created overnight.
And these are all like hyper specialized, right? So, it's like within the larger startup environment, you might strike on an idea and be like, this is a niche or hyper specialized idea that I have that can develop into some sort of tech product.
Hmm.
They go spin off, start that new company up. Usually the startup that they came from ends up buying them out.
Hmm.
Like there's that whole scenario that plays out too, where they kind of keep this fraternal this fraternal development organization going on where new companies pop up, but what they were is that they were outgrowths of, say, like one main company like Google. You see a lot of this with
Hmm.
Google, or a lot of your tech incubators like Y Combinator, for example.
Hmm.
you know so there's all these different environments where startups can actually flourish by sort of working in sort of like these clustered environments together. These are things, man. I would challenge anyone out there to think of a way in which we, as black folks, black men, currently do things in that manner.
Hmm.
If we did, we would be way more productive, way more successful in our ventures, but we don't. And it's just like you said, there's things that go on in this space, right, that unless we're talking about it and we're putting it out there, these other groups ain't talking to you about it.
Hmm.
So you never think to know how to do things in a certain way that'll like that can amass a critical scale, or it can build up. You can scale up in a short amount of time. It doesn't take a long time to build something. It really doesn't.
Yeah, and the only reason we're scaling up right now is because the content that we're putting out is starting to reach certain areas within the manosphere itself. I mean, Black
Hmm.
YouTube is an actual area of social media. It's considered to be the dark web, right?
Hmm.
Of culture, dark web of culture. So there's a sort of perverted, there's this sort of perverted or perversions of content that is being produced where people actually keep gravitating towards it like a drug. And people talk about the mean streets of YouTube. These black YouTube streets, but we for the most part operate in the suburbs, so we're insulated from all the non productive, unproductive content that is being created, and we have to create this content in order to give back
Hmm.
information because you need it.
It's crucial, man. I don't really see anything else. Sort of like, I don't see anything else that kind of gives you insight into like how your world is being shaped and viewed on a daily basis, right? If you're not actually following along what's taking place on the geopolitical scale, and then you have to also follow economics because the two are intrinsically linked, right? And then what's also a driver of a lot of the activities of these two is the technological sphere and the industrial sphere, the business sphere, right? So all of these three things that we always touch on a weekly basis, they're all intrinsically linked. That is it. That's kind of like the trinity of how to formulate your own worldview, is to follow these three things and follow them closely. And in doing that, if you're doing that, you're spending way less time talking about bullshit because there's a lot going on in the world.
Exactly, exactly. And the way we've been operating Brain Trust is that we're having these weekly conversations, and then we're kind of following up every quarter with something new, right? So we had the Black IT Summit, that was something new for the Brain Trust, but it's a gathering of like minds and inquiring minds as well, that we can actually produce something content wise that's going to be beneficial on the ground, right? So there's a lot of people who say, "Oh, well, where the solutions at? Where the solutions at?" But when we produce the solutions, those same people don't show up. But when I go to other hangouts and I see hangouts pushing 500, 1,000, 5,000 people viewing, and that, to me, 5,000 people in a single night in the 8 hour span, or even in a 3 hour span, that's a workforce. And
Hmm.
for most companies, that's a workforce.
That really is that five. You're talking like 5,000 employees or some shit. That is a workforce.
Yeah, even 500. 500 is the last startup company I was at. The headquarters, we had 300 people within the headquarters, and I was like one of two black men that were there. The other guy was Nigerian. He was a marketing digital marketing extraordinaire. He was amazing at what he does. Um,
Mm.
and what I'm saying here is that 500 people on the hangout talking about non-productive things or unproductive things is a waste of human cycles, human resources. We should be actually putting some things together. I mean, we've talked about getting into other avenues of business. One in three startups is a space startup.
Space. Yep.
Micro transportation. We've covered that every week for the last 10 weeks, 12 weeks.
We've got a presentation on that coming up here. So that was kind of one of the things that I was touching on for 2019. It's like, this will, like you said, this will be ramped up. It'll be scaled up because as you discuss more of these things, it begins to create an impetus to move into action. And you'll find that in these discussions, you'll start to see where a lane is, where you have where there's synergy between your interest and a problem in the world that you see that you can apply a solution to. So, but the only way you're going to know these things is to actually be engaged in discussions about what the fuck is going on in the world, and not a bunch of dumb shit.
Yeah,
You're not gonna learn about the world, discussing dumb shit.
yeah. I mean, we were talking with other colleagues in the summertime about well, things that we had to sign NDAs for because that's how far along we were. So we went from April, which was when the Brain Trust started, to June, July. We're having conversations with big corporations or people from big corporations that want to do business.
That's right. We were signing NDAs for certain discussions. That's
Right,
right.
right. So we are already ahead of the curve for the most part. Where when I look back at where we started to where we are right now, we're on the same phases of a for-profit startup.
Yeah, because I mean, where does it grow to at some point, right? Because we have seen growth in this year, man, from kind of where we started. And like I said, this was, with Noah and I coming in off of our channel,
Mhm.
and then coalescing over here, and then kind of seeing what is formed out of that within just this year alone. That's why I'm not jaded as to what can be done and what can be accomplished in a short amount of time if focus and the right type of energy is applied.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think um, this is this platform and just our sector of YouTube is going to determine 2019 into 2020 who's really about something and who's not in terms of productivity. I you know I have things on the table for the Brain Trust that is going to far blow away the Black IT Summit. I mean, Black IT Summit was
Hmm.
great, but we're going to take it to the next level in 2019,
Yep.
January, February, March. There's going to be so much stuff coming out. If you're not on board, you're going to get left behind. So
That's pretty much it, man. That's pretty much it,
yeah,
right? I think some areas. I think what takes place over here is that the discussions are more to gauge a direction for action, right? We have these discussions to get a sense or a gauge of where we need to go ahead and start taking action at, right? And that right there is puts you far and ahead, above and beyond those who really are just kind of sitting to wait to hear of a solution. Sometimes the solutions are met while in development, while you're doing something. Sometimes you have to just go and start doing something, And then you'll encounter whatever issues, that you're going to encounter, that'll give you the thoughts or the ideas to create the solutions. Sometimes you just have to jump in it first. And we don't, but that's what the startup culture is about. It's about just taking the idea and just going on it. Okay. We won't move on an idea. Like you said, unless it's something like starting up a rap studio or something.
Or
Well,
drop
we'll get that. We'll get a studio cracking in a minute.
right, or drop another mixtape.
Yeah, that'll happen in a minute. But like if you did have a micro transport idea, right? That one, yeah, it's a good idea, but no, why the hell not pursue it?
Because they don't see the tangibles, right? They people, and I say people, I mean black people. When you start talking about micro transportation, when you start talking about micro area, drones, aerial transport, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for them to grasp the realization behind it because they don't have that complex thought going on in their head. This is far beyond their thinking capacity.
And that's scary, Mike. That's very scary because you and I know how easy a lot of this stuff is to get involved in. That's what's scary.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. It's just one of those things. If you're not having that conversation past 30, man, you're already left behind.
Mm-hmm.
You're already
That's
left
scary.
behind because we covered a RT video in early in the summer from Max Kaiser where you had two Indians at 15, 16 years old talking about changing the world, and they weren't playing. They was dead serious
They
about
had their blockchain startups. They had patents.
it.
They own patents already.
Hmm.
I remember that one. Those dudes own patents.
Hmm. They were dead serious about it. Meanwhile, you got grown men on YouTube, black men, um, talking about who they can, what gang they was affiliated with, or how many tattoos they have, and how much time they spent in jail, not really contributing to society. You have two 15, 16-year-olds talking about putting genomes on the blockchain.
On the blockchain, yep, the genome. Yep, yep.
You got micro transportation startups happening right in your face, being valuated at $2 billion. Meanwhile, black men in the manosphere are still talking about, you know, how much, how many women they can get.
All the different levels to getting women, and not like the different levels of pursuing industry, right? Because I'm saying all those conversations can happen, and what'll happen is that you're gonna wake up one morning and you're gonna see a goddamn bird scooter in front of your house in the hood.
Hmm.
Okay, now was the time when you should have rolled that out in the hood for yourself. Because truth be told, like the tech is there, the cost isn't that much. Pull some resources and launch your own transportation networks. That way you can maintain some level of ownership in the community. You can do that. You can build up. You can scale up from there. These are not only are these these are just business objectives, but these are also strategies for saving your community. Like the things go hand in hand. If you invest in the community, okay, investing is investing in infrastructure, owning the infrastructure, like owning the things that make the community work and move and operate. That's how you hold on to it and stave off things like gentrification and stuff. I mean, it's a lot deeper than just, have a business so we can make a profit and put the money in our pocket. No, it's way deeper than that.
That makes me wonder if capitalism is something that black people have a problem with, right? I think the traditional nature of capitalism seems to be the problem, right? This um, understanding of it and how to properly utilize it, right? So people seem to
Mm-hmm.
gravitate towards, I can make this much money if I do this, right? They never think about if I do this, I have control over the market. Tesla hasn't turned a profit, if I remember correctly. They haven't turned a profit, but
They haven't.
they've
Yeah.
designed pretty much the whole entire battery infrastructure, the vehicle design, uh, charging infrastructure. Um, they've invested into public infrastructure development in order to have these charging stations at all of the you know the pull off stops on the side of the highway.
Mm-hmm.
So they're taking a risk, and I think the problem with black people is that they're afraid of risk. They're afraid
Oh,
of
wait. You think so? I
yeah.
mean, we risk a lot. We get, we engage in a lot of risky stuff, man. We're
Risky
already.
risky things, but from a business standpoint, the risk of if I put in X amount of sweat equity and financial resources, how much is there going to be a tangible return immediately? That's what they look for. The instant gratification, I
Okay.
think, is what they're looking
Right.
for, right? So the idea of waiting 5 or 10 years, like Twitter or Facebook, before you turn a profit, may be too far fetched for them. So maybe traditional capitalism may not be the thing that works for black people, for most black people.
Well, okay, but I think maybe also we have to sort of look at how we perceive or view these sorts of things and how it's supposed to work. I mean, if we're not thinking about, so like say like 5 or 10 years into the future, right, where a business is going to start turning a profit for you, then my question would be like, all right, well, if this business was going to like instantaneously going to be turning a profit for you, I mean, did you still see it turning a profit for you 5 or 10 years into the future?
Hmm.
Because if so, that means that even if it was, turning a profit for you now, you still have to be very attentive to that. You have to maintain and grow a business. It doesn't just make a profit for you and then it's like on auto set, right? It just continues to turn a profit. That's BS. That's not how it works.
Hmm. And the thing
You
is,
have to consistently be innovating.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, if you look at most Silicon Valley started as a startup. They came out of the garages. In the black community,
Yeah,
that's not cool. The cool factor is not there, being a nerd and things like that. I often hear certain YouTubers in the manosphere talk about part of being a man is about opposing your environment, right? And I would argue that the brain trust actually opposes the YouTube environment where in the manosphere.
I agree.
I would argue that the black men who did their undergrad and even before undergrad were in high school, who were in the library doing exactly what they were supposed to do, were imposing the environment. But see, those guys don't get the credit.
Hmm. I
Those
mean,
guys don't get
I was gonna say that you can make the analogy what you said, like the startups, like people working out of their garage, right? I mean, when a rapper like got their whole thing off the ground, selling out the trunk, it's kind of the same thing, right? You were selling out the trunk at one point, and then you got onto a label, and boom, you blew up, right? Startups, the same thing. You had Gates, Jobs, Wozniak, all these dudes, dude, they were building rigs in their goddamn garages and in their dorm rooms,
mhm.
right? And then from there, boom, Apple, Microsoft.
And it only took them 3 years. If you think
I'm
about
saying,
1970, Apple got started with 1979, which is the Apple Lisa. The I think that was the first one that they got to market. Um, and that they went from there from 1977 to 1979. They were able to get their product to market with very little resources. Um, Microsoft was a little bit different because they were more software based and they needed a partner. They needed IBM because IBM developed the hardware. But even still, they leveraged the hardware from IBM in order to get MS DOS up and going.
right?
And then out of Apple, out of out of Apple and out of Park, which is a Palo Alto Research Center for Xerox, came Adobe.
Hmm. Yep. So many other companies that that grew to prominence, yeah, were born out of other companies,
Dell,
and that's what
Dell,
I
that was
that,
born out of that too.
Dell. Yep. And the same can happen, and the same can happen again. In groups. When black men start to create, like I say, you start to have like a think tank, right? And then from there, it trickles down. The think tank analyzes industry, analyzes society, analyzes politics, analyzes all these things, finds holes, finds gaps, right? Finds opportunities, then business models, right? Creates theoretical business concepts that can fill those holes, fill those gaps. Then it becomes incumbent upon people who are listening in on the conversation to say, hey, you know what? I got a business idea,
Mhm.
right? Then you start to pursue it. And then that's how it starts to crescendo into this. This is how it happens. But that has to be an important thing. It has to be a constant thought. Like you said, engaging in constant and complex thought on a consistent basis.
Mhm.
It can't be something that you're in the mood to go and check out a brain trust hangout. So I'm gonna go and listen in today. I'm just out here. That's not sufficient. No, it's actually going to require your brain capital. It's going to actually require your sweat equity. It's going to require some ingenuity. It's going to require some inventive thought. And that means that you have to engage those centers of your brain more consistently. And then you also have to have discussions with other people who are in who are in that same venue.
Mhm.
Right? It's like osmosis, how it all works. But first and foremost, man, this shit has to be important to us, man.
Interesting. I can't remove his comment. Um,
Who's that? We got is that Sir Paul Bryant just joined us?
Yeah, hey, how
Howdy,
are you?
sir. How you doing, man?
oh, what's going on?
I'm good, fellas. Hi, how are you?
Good, hanging in there.
Good,
You
good.
got anything you want to add before we close
S-
out?
Yeah, just really quick. First of all, just want to say thanks, guys, for having the Black Brain Trust. It's very refreshing to have black men of critical thinking instead of all the dumb shit, all the uselessness. You know, um, you know, you guys just really brought back some things that I really, to be honest, kind of just blocked out. Because when I was on Wall Street, I tried for about 2 years to get together some brothers, and we're there, we're in the business, we're working, we're managing money, we're making clients money, we're making our respective firms money. We can do this for ourselves. I had a vision. My vision was we can manage money for high net worth clients and also act as venture capitalists for black startups. And the amount of resistance that I met from brothers trying to think outside of the box to people thinking, basically everything that you said, Mike. It's a culture and a stigma that has to be overcome. That because you're black, you're less than. That for some reason you just lack the mental capacity and you lack the ability to produce for no other reason than that you are black. And if nothing else, I've always been about challenging that status quo and totally going against that grain. And to that end, I'm not going to talk about all the useless conversations and topics that a lot of black men like to talk about.
Now, how
You
long
just
you been on
pointed
Wall Street?
to it.
I worked for one of the largest investment banks in the world for 3.5 years.
Hmm.
Then I left and I went to go work for a smaller trading firm for another 2 years. And I left. I got out of the business. I went into a totally, completely different realm. I've been a union iron worker. for years. And, I've traveled all over the world. I've worked all over the world, but I leveraged that knowledge and that experience for myself to do my own business, to make businesses, have real estate, have other business ventures and other, you know, um, investments and capital for myself because at the end of the day, I couldn't find anyone black who wanted to work with me. So I just did it myself for myself.
Okay.
I
You're gonna say
mean,
something, my boy?
if you're gonna do it, I was just gonna say, I mean, if for any other reason you're gonna do it, that would be it.
Yeah.
But it would be good to do it as a collective, right? Because you can pool, brain capital, brain resources, intellectual resources. You can be more productive the more you can pool in. So there's that notion that that would be very ideal for us to be able to pursue. But in lieu of that, yeah, you got to do it for yourself.
Absolutely. And exactly what you just said, man, pooling the brain capital. There is absolutely no reason. There's absolutely no reason that, we cannot do it for ourselves, and um tech startups are absolutely not my forte. All right. I don't know a lot about that, but I know enough. I know enough to find the right people on the money side and to find enough people who know enough about the tech side. And we all, as Mike said, the point is to get the right people in the right space, sitting down at the table, get all the necessary skill sets, and then you work together to make it happen. That's all it takes.
Hmm.
You would think, anyway, you would think, but for some reason, I don't know. Black people just seem to have a very difficult time trying to make that happen.
In my experience, 'cause I was a part of a few tech startups. One person does five jobs.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not uncommon. I think at one point Lionel had questioned, whether or not we were doing too many projects at once. No, that's pretty normal. That's pretty normal.
Yeah.
If you're working on multiple projects at a time, that is very normal. I at one point was working on different type of cybersecurity projects at one time. I mean, it's 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 expected that you're going to be taking on more than one task.
I was, it was funny. I was talking with Lionel about that too. I think maybe it was just like maybe like a week or two ago or something. Because the rideshare project really started to pick up over the course of the last 2 weeks. Um, and so, I was explaining to him like, you have various projects on the table. Some things move, and then you got some emails, you got some information that you're waiting to get back. So certain things kind of stop, and you're waiting for certain things to take shape or take place, or you're waiting for something. And so meanwhile, movement starts to pick up on this project over here. And so you always have to just be mindful of whatever task that has to be done. But again, if this is what you have going on, then that largely means that you have no time to be plugged into anything else that keeps you from being productive. So there's like you know, it's the chicken or egg. Which ones are going to be first, right? Um, at some point, like it just the impetus has to be there for us to fully engage.
Well, you, you, you know, um, you know, to answer a quick question, that I think Mike asked, from my experience, most black people in this country, they really just don't grasp business. They don't grasp economics, finance at all. And I really think it's cultural to a huge degree. It's a massive hurdle to overcome. And it's like that lack of understanding of finance, economics, how business works. The mechanics behind it, behind how it all plays out. just massive, massive hurdles.
Yeah, and there's a lot of social structural issues as well as not respecting certain types of black men because they don't exude certain types of masculinity that is common to the everyday urban environment, right? So a lot of the black men that I've run into, they're like Donovan Sharp. They talk like Donovan Sharp. They act just like him, look like him too. And for certain black men, they're like, man, I ain't taking no orders from him. All that extra unnecessary vitriol that is not productive. It's not productive to a startup or any sort of workplace environment. The bare minimum that you need to interact with for two humans to interact is respect.
Well, yeah, see, the thing is this, right? Hypermasculinity has no place in business.
Hmm.
It
Um,
really doesn't.
it really doesn't. And one of the things, listen, one of the things that would drive me up a wall is when I come into work, I'm wearing a sharp suit, sharp pair of shoes, my tie. I'm professional, and I see some young kid, a young black intern, or especially down in the mailroom, but even sometimes
Mm.
the young interns, and he's got his Dockers on, uh, uh, his baggy khakis, his shirt pulled out, and he just looks because he's more concerned about looking for the hood, and everything's huge, and everything is baggy, and he feels he has to be hyper masculine because he has to keep it real for all the homies,
Hmm.
but that has zero place in business. And you know what? If you walk into a room and you want to do business, and you're hyper masculine, and you know you're trying to keep it real for the homies, no one is going to take you seriously. No one wants to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, I don't think hypermasculinity and the ability to make intelligent decisions are intrinsically linked.
I really don't. I'm not going to say that listen, they're not mutually exclusive. I'm not going to go that far, but they have very little to do with each other.
Exactly. Yep.
Very little to do with each other. But um it's funny because I was talking to someone yesterday, and personally, I'm of the belief that it, the higher you go on the socioeconomic strata, the less and less you see of that. Okay, as you go further down socioeconomic strata, the more you see of it. See, so if you wake up in the morning, all right, and you have a four, five, six-bedroom house, you look out into your driveway, all right, life is good. You're not concerned about being hyper masculine or complaining about all the dumb shit that you see a lot on Black YouTube. As you go down the social economic strata, that's all you seem. That's the vast majority of where the conversation seems to be centered. But
Exactly. No, it's true.
it's and listen, I'm not trying to come across as being egalitarian or elitist.
Snobbish.
Yeah, that and a few other terms that I really don't want to. I'm really trying my best not to use bushy so and so, but the bottom line is, when you're not, it just seems to me that when you're not concerned about the latest pair of Jordans, and where your living is not crusty and dusty, you know, you're not you're not you're not hating on you're not dealing with the nonsense that you see on the majority of Black YouTube, and I'll just leave
Well,
that.
that's just an unequivocal truth, though, man, and it's just something that you can't get away from.
Yeah, bro, you're 100% right, and it's so counterproductive. It's like
That too.
that hyper masculinity and the countless. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing repeatedly and expect a different result. Now,
Hmm.
you would think if after 100 years of the same narratives and the same mindsets, and it hasn't worked, and realistically, there has been little progress for black people in this country in the last 100 years. People, a lot of people are going to argue against what I just said, but the point is,
I would say be maybe even a level of regression.
exactly, especially since 1968, but I
Yeah.
digress. You know, but the
Hmm.
the point is, if there's been little to no progress, it would behoove one to try something different, to try something new. We are past the point of marching and protesting and name calling and you know everything else and all these stupid narratives and 4 hours for a YouTube stream talk about nonsense.
Well,
You know,
let me pose this one. Let me pose this one. And I'm sorry, Mike. I just uh, Albert Einstein once said, "You can't solve a problem using the same level of consciousness, or I think it was intelligence, one of the two words. You can't solve a problem using the same level of intelligence that created it."
absolutely, absolutely. But as a black person, if you make that argument, you get called all kind of names. You get called all kinds of names. You know, we cannot continue the same mindsets that basically have us in the situation we are now. We have to think our way through. So that's why I appreciate what you guys are doing here at the Black Brain Trust because this is the way forward. We have to think our way through.
Hmm.
And to some degree, I've been soured and turned off to a lot of things because I fought a lot of wars. And there's a lot of things that I don't talk about, but I've fought a lot of wars, bro. And at my age now, I'm like, you know what? Hey, listen, life is good. I have my multiple revenue streams, my multiple income streams. Life is good. If someone comes along of the proper mindset and critical thought, and they want to make things happen, I will I will vet them properly, and we can absolutely work together. But short of that, all that mindless talk, keep it moving.
All right, we'll end it out on that. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back on Wednesday with geopolitics and Paul, stay online as well.
Okay,
Yes, please do.
sure.
Yes. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Hit the like button, share, and we are out.